Good afternoon, Dr. Swinburne Augustine of the island of Dominica by way of the U.S., no, by way of the Dominica Police Service, U.S. Army, Mihari Medical College, Environmental Protection Agency, and much, much more. Good afternoon, sir, on Christmas Eve of 2023. How are you?
Good afternoon, Gabe, and I am doing well, thank you. And I wish you, your family, and the listeners a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year.
Same to you, Dr. Swinburne Augustine. Same to you, to your family and your friends, and we ask God to place a hedge of protection around you and to keep you with us for many, many years. I just want to say, while many people are out there in the mall and at the store, fierce last dash to spend your money for a lot of things they don't need. I thought it important. I said, let's do it the day after Christmas. And I said, no, no, no. Our mother taught us never leave for tomorrow what it is you can do today. And I thought it couldn't be a better occasion on the eve of the birth of the Son of Man that we commemorate, which gave us hope as human beings, to use that opportunity to spotlight the life of one of our great Dominicans, a great West Indian, a great person of humanity who did a lot for us, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. And I'll take this moment before I get into the details to do this. I want to take this moment to say that it was one evening I was actually listening to the radio on Dominica. I believe there's a doctor called Dale Dangleman who was on radio, and there's a gentleman called Swinburne Augustine. And I said, Swinburne Augustine, I know that name, I know that guy, but it was a fascinating interview. At that time, everyone was very, very scared. It was 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic had really just started, and we didn't know whether we were coming or whether we were going. And here was a Dominican scientist speaking, and he was so informative. And I said, I got to get in touch with this guy. And an article was done because I did reach out. It says, can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
It says, can you read it, doctor?
Yes. Defeating COVID-19 Dominican-born scientist Dr. Swinburne Augustine leads groundbreaking research in COVID-19 and other environmental associated diseases at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
And here is the good doctor at that lab. Where is that lab located, doctor?
That lab is located in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And what is it you have in your hand?
That's a pipette. I'm actually inside of a biorobot. And this is an official EPA picture. And let me just say that whatever we're talking about is in my personal capacity. I'm not representing the federal government or the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Understood.
What we're talking about now, this is just personal. So I'm inside there, and in here we would put all our samples and leave. And overnight, the robot would go ahead and do all the pipetting because you program it. And then we just come back the next day and get the results.
Outstanding. I'm going to stop sharing that picture. But I thought it important to do that article on you. And later on, I found it was taken up by the CARICOM community website and many other websites, because it was a fascinating article about a fascinating human being who was doing some groundbreaking work to help us at the time of COVID-19. And I want to compliment you, Sweeney, because I think through that article and your efforts, you were on radio in Jamaica, in Trinidad, all across the region. And I want to thank you for your service all across the United States and indeed the world, giving guidance. And so it was a blessing for us to have someone from the little village of Delices in the southeast coast of Dominica, overlooking the Matnik Channel, to be in such an auspicious place in the way of science and scientific achievement. So, brothers, Sweeney, welcome. We will post this so that others can benefit from your illustrious life and in public service. Brother Sweeney, tell us, where were you born and when were you born?
Well, I was born in, at the time, the Princess Margaret Hospital. Now it's the Dominica China Friendship Hospital in Roseau, in Goodwill. But then as a young child, I was sent to my grandparents in Delices because my mom was working in town and my dad was gone to Canada to study. So I grew up in Delices, but
Yes.
then secondary school, we go to La Plaine, sit the common entrance. I got lucky enough, though 5% to get into the St. Mary's Academy.
Stop 1 second, Brother Sweeney. You were born in 1959 or 1960? You were born in 1959 or 60?
62.
62. So you're a young guy. Brother Sweeney, what was your father's name and what was your mother's name?
My father's name is Victor Augustine. As he used to be a broadcaster with what's his name? Alvin Knight, when they used to be broadcasting on DBS back in the day.
Okay.
And then Rosie and the rest, Rosie Douglas, our former prime minister, they all went to Canada to study.
Outstanding.
One of his best friends, who is my godfather, is somebody most Dominicans would know, Vance LeBlanc, the first, my teacher at SMA, but he was also the first president of the National Bank.
Yes. The first manager. His wife, who was Jamaican, taught me English literature at grammar school.
Exactly, Winsome LeBlanc. That's my godfather.
Yes, and his daughter actually played on the Canadian soccer team as a goalkeeper.
And in the Olympics. For Team Canada.
Yes. Didn't they get the gold medal?
No, I think they got silver.
Okay. So, Sweeney, you were born in 62 at the Princess Margaret. You go back to Delices, but what was your mother's name?
Oh, yes. And my mom was Paulina, like they say back home, not Paulina. Paulina. Eloi.
And that's E-L-O-I-S.
E-L-O-I. They say Eloi in the Virgin Islands and other places, but it's Eloi. It's
and how
kind
do you
of
spell
French.
the first name?
Paulina. Paulina. But they're in Dominica is Paulina.
So your father later became an accountant, is that right?
Yes, he is a certified management accountant.
And your mother?
And she was a teacher, but then she went to St. Thomas and she was taking care of elderly people. But she's retired and back in Dominica hanging out.
Outstanding. Any siblings? Any brothers and sisters?
Yes. Two. Got two brothers. My two younger brothers just retired from the military, Donnie Fabian, that most people will know. And Jermaine Liebert, Clinty, my little brother. They both retired as E7 and sergeant majors in the Army.
So you're saying that both your brothers, like you, entered the U.S. Army?
Yes, and retired.
Retired now. And they were sergeant majors?
One is a sergeant major, the other one is sergeant first class. Two ranks below.
Okay. And in what divisions did they serve? Were they in infantry or artillery?
Donnie was in the 82nd Airborne. Clinty was in military police. So he was in a lot of other units all over the world.
Yes.
Both of them were actually.
And would you say, and we'll get to that in time, but you were the first of the family to enter the 82nd Airborne?
Well, not the 82nd Airborne, 44th Med Brigade. But 44th Med Brigade had a special unit, special units that were airborne. Part of the 44th Med were airborne, and we directly supported the 82nd. So we jumped with them and we trained with them.
Yes, indeed. And so how many jumps, by the way, do you have to your credit?
Man, I can't count. It's a whole lot.
So you're a paratrooper as well?
Yes.
Okay. So let's get back to Dominica. So you're in Dominica. So you have two brothers. Any sisters, by the way?
And well, no, I have another brother, a younger brother in Canada, and then I have 4 sisters.
Okay. Can you give us your names?
Karen is in Canada. She's the youngest. Then Shirley is in Atlanta. She is the one after me. I'm the first. Then Ingrid is serving with the U.S. Navy. She is a civilian psychologist for the U.S. Navy in South Korea right now.
Okay.
And then Charlene is in Dominica. And I was just with her not too long ago. And she just retired as a healthcare personnel in Dominica.
Outstanding.
Most people will know her at the clinic in Goodwill,
Outstanding.
Pottersville area.
So you've got a family that's full of public service in the military and in healthcare. Outstanding. Let me ask you then, when you were in Delices, your parents had already migrated, so you were staying with your grandparents?
Yes.
And can you
They
give us your
raised me,
grandparents?
and most people, my grandparents had a lot of land. So when the kids grew up, they needed people to help them with the land. So they took all the grandkids, really, actually. So I grew up in the house with all my cousins, male and female. Most of the parents had already gone to study or to work.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how they did it, but they did.
Sweeney, this is something a social psychologist or sociologist, anthropologist in time to come, maybe soon we'll have to study. But in the Dominica of our youth, there were many people in your situation because after the war, many thousands of Dominicans went overseas to the United Kingdom, others to Canada. And so you find there were a lot of Dominicans like you who were raised not by your immediate parents, but by your grandparents. Is that correct?
Yes. But you know what? A couple of decades ago, right? I had a conversation with my dad in Canada. And I actually I think it was when I was getting married in Nashville. And I said, I don't want you to feel bad that you were not there because I am on the same kind of journey that you were. You were on when I was a kid. But you or my mom or the both of you together could never raise me like your parents did. And it hit him. I couldn't have punched him harder than that.
Yes,
and
yes.
From then, we became best friends.
Yes, indeed. Because from the age of what? How old were you when your grandparents took you?
Oh, man, I was about 1 or 2.
1 or 2 weeks.
1 or 2 years old.
1 or 2 years old. Okay, so basically that's what you knew, your grandparents.
Yes.
Give us
they were my parents.
They're your parents. Give me your grandfather's name and your grandmother's name.
The whole of Delices on the East would probably know that man's name, Mr. Severine Augustine.
Severine Augustine.
Yes.
You know, my
and look,
grandfather's
he
from
was,
Delices.
yes,
And he
Aaron
was Aaron John
James
Baptist.
Jack Augustine, but he used to mess around because his last name, one of his names was like French, Jacques, Jacquees. And so he would mess with us and say Jacques. And so on everything, every tool, every gardening tool he had, he put AJJA on it or IXXI. So if somebody stole it, I in the Roman numerals being the first, J is the 10th letter of the alphabet, so X. And I'm looking at this man, I'm like.
So your grandfather was very literate. He was a very wise man.
Very. He had one of the best handwritings I ever saw.
Yes, indeed. What about your grandmother? What was her name?
And my grandmother, Severine, and she was Euseb, and so the Eusebs in Delices, the Elois, the Eusebs, my family and Augustine's. So she was Severine. She is the one who actually taught me music, to read. I went to your uncle's school, to Christian musical school, by the river.
Of course.
By the new bridge then.
Yes, you know he was from Delices as well.
Yes, I know. That's your uncle.
Yeah, the Christians are from Delices.
Yes. And a lot of my friends from Delices, actually, I was with some of them. They're Christians, but they live in Boston.
Yes. You mean Avenel and James and so on.
Avenel's brother. We were all together in Delices by the river while I was down there.
Indeed.
A couple weeks ago.
Indeed.
So, My mom used to teach, but then she moved to St. Thomas and she started taking care of older people in their homes, in home care, and then she retired. So she just went back home recently.
So what was village life like in those days before you went to the St. Mary's Academy?
Look, I would not trade that thing for anything else on earth. That experience, nothing could compare to that. We were never hungry, because when people talk now about organic foods, and when they talk about fast foods, and when they talk about health, when I go back and look, and when I went back just recently, I saw everything that I always thought I knew. All your food was around your house. All of the fruits and vegetables are right, their herbs, right outside of the house. Now, yes, we used to have to go up to the mountain because we didn't have electricity, so we used to have to go cut wood and carry it on our heads because we didn't have a vehicle.
Yes.
So
Dr. Augustine, stick a pin in that. You know, so for those who will be listening to this recording, Delices is in the southeastern corner, overlooking the Matnik Channel. Delices, overlooking the Matnik Channel. And in the past, Delices is part of course, the French dominion over Dominica. So Dominicans speak a lot of French, and they come all back and forth. So when Dr. Augustine says bois diable, bois means wood, and diable means devil.
Devil's wood.
So devil's wood. Why would they have called it devil's wood? Do you know?
It was hard. That thing was hard, but it would last a long time when you lit it, and it would cook your entire meal, and still you would have embers that you could cook another meal with.
Okay.
But it was very hard and very heavy.
So when you went to the forest to get wood for fire for making your meals, you didn't just pick any wood. You picked particular wood that would last a long time.
Well, our uncles would go up. The older guys would have gone up already, and they would leave early in the morning, and we would just have a time. We'd go up, and we would just be carrying it back and forth. You know, carrying back, making several trips because you had to have wood. You didn't do that, but on a Saturday. So you had to have wood for the week.
Yes. So let me ask you this.
Hence the reason they wanted all these grandkids up there.
You needed labor.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you a question. When you cooked your meal in the morning, what time would you have to get up to make the fire?
Man, they were getting up early, like 5 o'clock. Because we would have I was the second oldest cousin. So the oldest one, he just passed away, bless his soul, Warrell. Warrell and I would get up early because we would go up early, 5:30, 6 o'clock with our grandfather, because he had cows and we were the ones responsible for grazing them. We would, change them from one area to the next. And then we would milk them. So we would have to go up early and then get ready for primary school by 9 o'clock.
And would you say that kind of dedication to timekeeping and animal husbandry and getting the wood, that enforced a certain discipline on you that served you well in your later years?
Absolutely. I have a garden out here. My hands, they have all kinds of, they call them zapud, right? They, calluses, because I garden all the time. And from then, because I understood then the value of organic food, number one. But when I looked at my grandfather, especially, because he used to walk all to the mountains, the man stayed slender up till 96 and was healthy. And so I associated that walking and working with good health and what we ate. So it just became natural.
You know, I just listened to you, and on the morning that I left for the States on December 27th, 1982, you know, I ran up to stock farm where it was a government stock farm where we had cattle. We had about 10 heads of cattle. And I had to go early in the morning, all through grammar school, all through when I was teaching to graze the cattle.
Yes.
And so I looked around for the last time at the stock farm after I broke some glory cedar, some zebgua, and so on, fed them and so on. And I ran back down, took a bath off to the airport. And that kind of engagement when I came here to the States and things were tough, and I had to work as a janitor and as a cook and so on during college days, made me very strong. And I'm sure it did the same for you. So
Yes.
let me ask you this. What would you eat in the morning when you got up?
Back, you know, it's a good thing you asked that, because that question can be found. The answer to that question can actually be found on the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture website, on part called My Plate, what your plate should look like. So I was actually researching how to eat properly. You know, I knew back then, but scientifically, I wanted to look. And they went to My Plate. And when I looked at the plate, it looked like what we ate back home every single day. On every plate for breakfast, you either had some bread, some bush tea. Sometimes on weekends you have saltfish, but every plate had something green. It had a little portion of meat because we couldn't afford meat a lot, but what they were giving us was what we actually needed.
So you were not overeating. You were not overeating.
Exactly. And there were carbohydrates, there were proteins, and there was a joke. Is a joke in my village that sometimes when I was young, I remember it because it was true, and things were pretty tough. I don't know what was going on at the time, and my grandfather had gotten upset at my grandmother. That's the only time I heard him get upset at her, and he told her not to cook two meats in his house because things were tough. What he was talking about was that, I don't know if it was chicken or beef, but she had garden peas with it. It was while I was in college, I understood that he meant two proteins.
Ah, interesting. What a wise man. What a wise man. Wow. So the peas, that's the protein.
Yes. And so he's like, so because the whole joke is when I went down recently, they were recounting that joke, and I told them what it actually meant. And they were just the same way like you just did. They were like, how did he know that? Well, I don't know, but he did. And that was what he meant. Two proteins in a time when it's hard, you're defeating the purpose.
Yes.
So we can stretch, we can cook the meat one day and cook the beans the other, the garden peas the other day, because there's a protein source.
I want to say something about the British system of education that we benefited from. So the British set up Mico Teachers College in Jamaica, and we had two distinguished teachers who went there, LCDDA and another guy called Benjamin. His son became Dr. McDonald Benjamin, the first African-American to graduate from UCLA with a PhD in food technology. He later became an executive of the World Bank, and his son later became an executive of the World Bank, a PhD also, McDonald Benjamin. And they were married to Sandra Benjamin. Now, they're from that area, but their father was a teacher. And in those days, they encouraged what you call school gardens. And in the school garden, the teachers were responsible to teach the children about proper hygiene when coming out of the garden, cleaning their nails and all that, as well as the nature of the foods they were planting. Our mother is 94, going on 95. And she was a member during World War II of the 4-H Club.
Yeah.
Head, heart, hands, health. 4H. Head, heart, hands,
And
health.
health.
So your grandfather would have been coming out of that same system of education. So while they may
Yes.
not have had PhDs, they were very well taught at the elementary school level in way of agriculture science. And so that's where he may have learned that. You
Well,
see?
I'm still, even when I went down recently for independence, I was asking one of my uncles, where is that big black pot? Because my grandfather was the first one almost in the whole island to have set up a mill to produce toloma and farine from cassava, from the arrowroot, from the or toloma and
So
cassava. And I'm
toloma
like,
is a
where did he get
cereal
those
from the
things?
arrowroot plant. Toloma is a cereal, a white cereal from the
Right.
arrowroot plant.
Yes.
And farine is
From
also
cassava.
a white cereal from the cassava.
Yes, and for a very long time, everybody from the east used to come behind our house.
Yeah.
I mean, Cecilia probably told you, behind our house, that's where we would feed them. They would drink, party. But what he never taught anyone. I asked him, how comes nobody else has a meal? I was kind of inquisitive, and I was very close to him. So I asked him, how comes? He told me he never taught them how to make the wheel, because there's a special wood, and you have to you cut it in sections to make that wheel, and then you buy sheet metal and pound it through so it becomes very sharp, and that's what you push through. I saw a lot of people lose their fingers in there. But
yes.
I mean, I don't know how he did it, but these people were it took a lot of physics. They knew how many men it would take to stand on that stick, on a piece of wood, and pound it so that the wheel would turn.
Well, let me share something with you again for historical purposes. So the sugar industry, which gave Western Europe the capital for the Industrial Revolution, Britain in particular, was based on sugar. Dominica, at the height of its sugar industry, had 13 sugar mills. And a lot of the big pots you see in the forest are the old pots from the sugar mills. So the reason why you will find West Indians were very much sought after as workers in Aruba, in the oil industry, in the Panama Canal project, is because West Indians had been agricultural workers, but also they were familiar with ironmongery and iron smithing and fixing mechanical contraptions, because the sugar mill was a mechanical shop. It was a mill. So we came out of a mill society. The sugar industry was slavery, though it was a agro-industrial process of milling cane to make molasses, and then molasses to make sugar. So that what you call knowledge was institutionalized among the general population, right? So this is a fascinating subject, because you see how history teaches that things can be passed along. So they may not have gone to mechanical engineering school to get a bachelor's degree or master's degree, but they had the knowledge because it had been passed down.
Yes.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your grandfather was not only a farmer, but he was also a miller of arrowroot to make toloma, which is a cereal, and cassava to make farine, which again you can use to make bread and so on.
He had a distillery to make bay oil. So he was a big entrepreneur in the village. So everybody in the village called him Daddy.
And bay oil is like a deodorant, astringent.
Is the base for a lot of perfumes, and it is bay rum. It is also something you use when you have colds and fevers.
And that comes from the bay leaf.
Yes.
And they call it in Delices boaden.
Boaden. I was drinking bay leaf tea all while I was there. That's how I drank every morning while I was there. Just go pick some leaves and brew it.
You know, so for those who will be listening to this interview with Dr. Swinburne Augustine, let it be known that at some point in the past decade, Dominica in the Americas had the highest life expectancy, and I think still today has one of the highest life expectancies of any country in the world, and also has one of the highest percentages of centenarians per capita of any country in the world. And when one thinks of it, it goes back to the good public health system that was bequeathed us by the British, to be frank with you, as well as a good system of law and law-abiding nature by the people, and a very solid agriculture where people could subsist off their own fruits and vegetables, and we had the blessings of abundance of fresh water. Tell us about
Yes.
the river in Delices.
365 rivers in Dominica, one for each day of the year.
Yes. What river did you go to in Delices?
Aye, man, we had too many. We had a lot of sources, but the two main ones were Subaya, which Subaya is the one that Delices is divided into like hamlets. All of it is called Delices, but it's broken up into Delices proper, then Carib, then Mouchardoué, then you have La Roche, Victoria. Between Carib and La Roche, the bridge that is over the Subaya River. I don't think people go there much. I didn't see much going on there, but we used to hang out there. But the main one was the White River, which is one of only two white rivers. The water is actually white but pure. The White River in Delices. That's the one we hung out on mostly, which
did you catch?
Most people know.
Yeah. What kind of creatures did you catch from that river to eat?
Oh man, TTV. So most people who know the little TTV, a lot. Losh.
That's a tiny fish.
Yes, the tiny ones. Losh was like a one that's stuck on the stones. And then
is that the same as VO?
VO, yeah, VO. And then we had gouache, which was like a big shrimp.
Yes.
You know?
Is that the same as quibish?
Yeah, quibish. Yeah, the big quibish. So we had we were always getting things to eat there.
Just so that the people who will listen to this will know, in the days when we were young, there were a lot of rivers around Roseau, for instance, where we would get VO. Stuck, it's like a mollusk. It's like a shellfish, a marine creature, like a snail, and it would be stuck on the stones.
Yes.
And we take that home and boil it in salt water.
Yeah.
And then you take a pin and you dig it out, and you get the nice sweet meat. Yes, the nice sweet meat. Yes. And then of course, quibish is like a crayfish. It's like a
a crayfish, like shrimp. A crawfish.
Like a crawfish, yeah.
Yes.
And so we had a lot of local protein, And did you how was it true in the summer you'd go to the beach, to the river more than to the sea? And why did you not go to the sea as often?
Well, we went in Delices. They discovered, our grandparents did not want us to go to the sea. It was very rough. We used the very rough Atlantic side, and over these big rocks, and they were very, they had a lot of slippery
rocks.
Yeah, they were very slippery. So we were discouraged from, because one of our friends actually died there. He went to fish. So, that was a no-no. So the river was really where we hung out.
So for the record, Dominicans, even in Roseau, we more or less went to the river than the sea. But I grew up on the Caribbean side, and you grew up on the Atlantic side of the island. So the Caribbean side is very calm. But on the Atlantic side, it's very rough.
Very rough.
Strong wind. It's coming from Africa.
Yes, a very strong current.
Strong current, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you go to the river in the summer, is it true you go there in the morning and stay there all day until afternoon?
All day. Well, because it wasn't just going to the river. That was the laundry. Our aunts would be we would be carrying the clothes down, and they would be washing all day. So we had to be there. and then we would play and eat all the fruit and all the fruits that were down there. We would be eating fruit, but then we had to go get them lunch and bring it back, and then carry the dry clothes back because they would dry them on the tree, on the shrubs that were there, the trees that were there, or on the stones. Yeah.
What fruits would were popular back in
Man,
those days?
guavas, mangoes. There's these little cherries. They say, the beach cherries, the wize.
Yeah, tamawe wize.
Yeah, tamawe wize. They say if the mom eats it, the children's teeth chatter. It's so
yes.
Yeah, but mama mange wize dazafa glassy. So for Dominicans or French people who are listening, that's what that means.
Yes.
But
what Dr. Augustine just said was that if the mother eats mama maji with zafa da glasi means
zafa glasi.
Da zafa glasi. The mother eats the sea cherries, the children's teeth will become sensitive.
Sensitive. Yes.
Sensitive. Yes. So that's
because it's like like eating tamarind.
Yeah, same thing.
You feel that. So they're saying it's so, when you eat those, it's so strong that even the kids that are not born will feel it. Or the kids will feel it. It's so potent.
We're enjoying this bit of village life so much. It's like we could spend all day there, but I know we have to go on to your education. So who was your teacher, if you remember? And how could you describe in a few words your elementary school education in Delices?
Elementary school, man, look, the school was right next to us, so I could never be close. I could never be sick. And my grandfather was the truant officer for the village.
Yes.
The one who picked up the report, the list of people who were not there at 9 o'clock.
Yes.
So I couldn't miss.
Let the record reflect that in Roseau, the Anglican deacon, Frank, would ride around town on a bicycle in the 60s to look for stray children. And if you were out in the street after 9 o'clock, he would arrest you and bring you to the police station.
Yes.
And so we had a truancy officer in town. I'm not sure whether they have that still, but it was a very effective system.
It was. It was. So everybody, the parents were afraid of him because he would get on the parents if they had the kids in the garden with them.
Yeah, so we had a very strict country where education was very important and impressed upon. Would you say, brother?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I know we come into education, but I want to say the American system of education is good. I've learned a lot here. But the foundation, I don't think it would have been possible for me without that very, very strong background I got in Delices under people like evangelist now Peter Augustine, my cousin, who taught, Albert Williams, who was not only a teacher, but several times he was an instructor when Dominica actually started the police academy. He was one of the first instructors there. So he taught me, and I knew him as a policeman in town because they took care of us when we came down. Kelvin Albert, he taught, but people like teacher Helen, she just passed away, Helen Etienne. She was the wife of the first minister of government we had from Delices, Honorable Etienne, who was just, I think, 94 years old a couple of days ago.
Yes, that's Bevin Etienne's father, Mikey, Bevin, and
right, Mikey and Bevin and all of them. So
and Bevin actually got a PhD in mechanical engineering and teaches at the University of Virginia.
Right. So Mr. Thomas Etienne, and then his brother Hesketh Etienne became Minister of Culture after him. Yeah. So
Bevin, I think, got his PhD. Bevin got his PhD right here at the University of Maryland, College Park, I believe. That's what I met him.
Yes. And his wife is a professor at the University of Maryland.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Very, very bright
people. We stay in touch.
Very bright people. Likewise, Bevin will be right here with us. So, I mean, we put up the first wind turbine in Dominica at Point Milat in 2002. Yes. And Thomas Etienne, a blessed, well, he's still with us, told me about
Mhm.
my family because my father was born at Point Milat. That's where the police station was.
That's where your father used to ride on that horse.
That's right, the horse called John.
The police horse.
The police horse.
To
The horse
patrol the
called John.
village.
So when did you take your common entrance, Brother Sweeney? That's the
So
exam to
I
go to high
was
school.
like about 9 when I took the common entrance because they kept skipping me in class. I would skip classes because they thought one teacher in particular, teacher Serafine, and he just so happened she ended up marrying my late uncle and lives in Boston. But she thought that I was ahead of where we were teaching, so she would always move me up. And then, so I was already in Form 1 when I went to sit the common entrance. So at 9, and then from there went down to town.
So you're how old at that time? 9 or 10?
9.
9. So you came to town at age 9?
Yeah.
Amazing. So you started St. Mary's Academy. For those who will listen to this, St. Mary's Academy was the second most important high school in Roseau. It's always competing with the Dominica Grammar School. It was run by the Catholic Church at that time. And I think the principal at that time was Brother Egbert Germain.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
No. When I joined, it was Father Kelvin Felix, who is now Cardinal Kelvin Felix.
That's correct. That's correct. How was St. Mary's Academy? What was that like?
Look, other than I really believed in their motto, ora e labora, work and pray. You said you were very religious. So they taught you, and it's so funny that you asked this because when I went down, I haven't put all the pictures that I took when I went down. I'll post them online. But on the school, on the walls, there are things like persistence and all the things that they were teaching us that we couldn't see on a wall, painted on a wall. They were teaching us how to be resilient, and their standard of education, I found later, was so high. Not just SMA, but Dominica. And I will prove it in myself. That because of what I had learned back home. When I was in the military here and I went to Georgia Military College, I had 1 more year to leave the military, and I told them I wanted to take 24 hours a quarter because I wanted to have an associate's degree before I left the military. They told me it was impossible. So the chair of the department, Dr. Scroggins, white lady, she said, well, how do you think you're working full-time in the military and the college is on post, is Georgia Military College. I said, I don't care if I work, I have to get up at 5 and I do PT, physical training at 6. Then I put my uniform on at 9 and I go to the hospital and work as a nurse till 4. And then I go to school from 4:30 till 11. I said, I don't care. I said, and what convinced her was that I said, if I could sleep for 3 to 4 hours, not a night, but in a 24-hour period in Saudi Arabia for the US, I can do it for myself and I will prove it. I said, the school will lose nothing. Give me a chance. She did. And you know what? All A's, and by the second quarter, I was teaching math.
Amazing.
Because the Miss Nunley, who was the math teacher teaching algebra and trigonometry, got sick. And because of my grades in the first quarter, she asked if I could teach her class, and they let me teach it. But that was based on what I had already done that stuff at SMA.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I got 2 bachelor's degrees in 2 years. I spent 1 year and got an associate's. And when I left the army and went to Nashville, it took me 2 more years, 2 years and 9 months to get a double major in chemistry and biology with all A's.
Amazing.
Based not because of but based on what I had learned in Delices and at the SMA.
St. Mary's Academy. So,
yes.
so Dominicans have to be justifiably proud. And I've always said that. I've been to all kinds of schools here, Georgetown University on Capitol Hill, and I can tell you without a doubt that Dominican teachers are among the best teachers in the world, in my view. I mean, I've met teachers from all over the world, and Dominican teachers of my time were competent, dedicated, passionate, strict, mostly kind. Now and again, you know, you get a little caning if you didn't behave yourself, you know. But I think we're very fortunate, Doctor, to be in that situation. So you spent 5 years at the SMA.
Gabe,
yes.
What you just said about the teachers? There is something even more amazing about that. None of them, most of them, did not have a bachelor's degree. Most of them had just finished high school, like us, secondary school, like us. Some of them, some that taught me at SMA were in 5th form when I started, like Giftus John, who is my very good friend.
Yes. He
was in 4th and 5th form, and those guys ended up teaching us.
Yes, indeed.
Giftus was here, you know, those you all started teaching, right? You all went to 6th form college, and that was it.
Yes, indeed.
So the knowledge that you all were giving us was without the benefit of a bachelor's or master's degree that they require here. So yes, think indeed. About the import of that.
Oh, very much so, very much so, very much so. Apart from Giftus John and Cardinal Felix and Father Felix and Brother Jermaine, any other teachers you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember all of them. Yeah, we had Heather Elwin taught geography. Her tall Mr. Elwin, who eventually became already passed away, but he taught me Helen Kuz-Latig, you know. So we had brother Peters, a lot of the brothers were there then. Brother John Lewis, who is now Monsignor John Lewis, and I'm in touch with them still.
Yes.
So all these were, I mean, those had bachelors, and we had a French teacher, I can't remember her name, but she, I mean, she had a little Peugeot, a little orange Peugeot, right? A real French car. And she had studied in France, and she really got us into taking French seriously. We knew a lot of patois, so it made it easy.
When you say patois, you mean broken French?
Yes, the Creole.
Because Dominica used to be French.
Right.
Dominica used to be French, and we're between 2 French islands.
Right. Yes. So yeah, those were the folks.
Did Andre teach you at all? Was he there at all? No?
No. George Andre?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gone already.
Okay. So let's go now into, so you graduated in 1979.
Yes.
The same year as the hurricane.
Man, we couldn't have a graduation ceremony.
Yes.
I never had a high school graduation ceremony because remember the hurricane happened, and then there was nothing was open for almost over a year.
Yes. Was it at that time that you joined the police service?
No. After I finished my GC's, after I finished my GC exams, that's the general certificate of education that administered by University of Cambridge, for those who don't know. After I finished those, I went to work at Royal Bank. But that's
the Royal Bank of Canada.
The Royal Bank of Canada. And I was in foreign exchange I learned to invest. I learned to read, you know, because remember back home, people changed a lot of currency. They converted a lot of currency, especially the British pound. And you could see the
Why was that?
fluctuations.
Why were Dominicans in possession of so much foreign currency?
Because we have so many people, and you know, so many people left, and the remunerations, they send back a lot of their currency, because at that time most people were sending things through the red, white, and blue airmail envelopes.
That's right. So we're talking about British pounds, Canadian
The
dollars.
German mark, and for the businesses, especially for the businesses like Astafans, when they ordered goods, the Chinese, I had to know all the rates. As when you went into the bank, into Royal Bank at that time, when you looked at that whiteboard and saw the rates of exchange, I was the one writing them on there. I would have to go in early to, you know, the dot matrix printers would send them, spit them out, and then I would go write the rates of exchange for the morning. So I learned that if sometimes the British pound is $9 and then it dropped to $3, I could buy a whole bunch of them at $3 and sell them when they get back to $9. But
Amazing.
that would have been insider trading.
Yes.
But we didn't know about insider trading. Now thinking about it back, you know.
So how long were you at a bank official?
I stayed there for a year and it was too boring. That life was not for me. So I wanted more excitement and I just decided to join the police force.
And where were you trained?
Barbados, Ferry Valley, Barbados, the regional police training center.
Okay. Do we still use it, or do we still use our own police academy?
No, I was actually the last class. My class was the last class of Dominicans to go to Barbados. Course 69 was the last. And then Dominica started their own at Mont Bruce, which is where Albert Williams, sergeant at that time, station sergeant, started teaching.
Outstanding. And
my
when
former
did you
primary school teacher.
Indeed. When did you graduate from police academy?
I think it was 1980, 1980,
Oh,
81. 81.
Okay. And were you specially assigned to a unit called the Special Service Unit, SSU?
Yeah. I was at the top of the class in Barbados. So usually the Dominicans, we talk about Dominicans being smart. And it is true. It is something that I've experienced a lot, right? We were in the top 10, and usually are in the top 10 everywhere, in college or wherever. And in Barbados, we were. So those of us, about 3 or 4 of us were in the top 10. So they put us in CID when we came back. So I worked in CID for a while, and then they started.
And when you say CID, you mean criminal? Yeah, CID means criminal investigation.
Yeah. And then I worked, they transferred me to Portsmouth to do CID work in Portsmouth. I was like the only CID person in Portsmouth, in the second town. Yeah. But then something happened, and then they needed a new unit called the Special Services Unit, and they pulled some of their best, and I was one of those they pulled.
And the Special Service Unit, for those who will be listening to this recording, was like what you call SWAT team here in the United States. It's like a military commando within the police. Yes, with machine guns and that type of thing. So, So what was happening in the country that caused for that formation? Was it the political troubles with Patrick John?
Yes. Well, after our army was disbanded,
yes.
When the Prime Minister finally stepped down, the army was disbanded, and so they needed security for the country. So we really didn't do police duties per se. We were mostly doing national security duties.
Yes.
Like
So you're talking
protecting
about
the
in
prime
79.
minister, protecting the country, the ports, protecting, going after, people causing mess in the mountains.
That was the Dread War. Yeah, people like Pocosio and so on.
Yes.
So that was in 79. Patrick John stepped down after the riot of 1979, and then Eugenia Charles came in after the election of 1980 and became prime minister and disbanded the defense force. And so the SSU was very important. Now, around December 17th, December 18th of 1981, well, strike that. Earlier in 81, there was an attempted coup from Louisiana with Mike Perdue and the Ku Klux Klan, but they never arrived because they were
Right.
arrested in Louisiana in April of 81 by the FBI as the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Department of the US government. They were about to board a boat called Manana, and they were arrested. So they never got to Dominica. But the former members of the Defense Force were plotting a coup of their own after that, led by then Major Frederick Newton and Captain Malcolm Reed. Malcolm Reed was in jail with Patrick John, Dennis Joseph, Malcolm Reed, Dennis Joseph, Patrick John, and I will get the guy's name. It just escapes me now. But Julian David. They were all at Stock Farm Prison when on December 18th, the evening of December 18th, a Friday night into Saturday morning, remnants of the Defense Force attacked police headquarters. Tell us about that night.
Look, I was home that night. This is a night I will never, ever forget. And anyone who tries to tell me or tries to minimize that night, in my view, I have no respect for them. That night I was at home in Greens Lane, right opposite our house in Greens Lane is directly opposite the former Prime Minister O.J. Serafin's house. It is overlooking the stadium and the river. It's by our house you had to pass to go down that shortcut or the shortcut to go down to the bridge. You had to walk by our house. And it's the last house. So I could see the town and I could hear everything going on in town. So I started to hear bullets. I started to hear firing. I'm like, what's going on? But SSU people were the only police that were allowed to carry their guns home.
Yeah, what kind of gun did you have at that time?
I had a small French SMG, submachine gun. The small, compact gun that you fold so I could have it under my arm and you would never know, under my shirt.
Yes.
But when I pull it out and open it, and I could just fire multiple shots. So I used to like that. And I also had...
And Doctor,
there you go, that's it right there.
Yes. That's it right there.
That's it. Yes, that was my favorite weapon.
Yes. And that's you as a police commando.
Yes, and that actually is a picture in Grenada.
We'll get to that because you were part of the Grenada invasion. We'll get to that in a moment.
Picture there. That is a picture in Grenada.
You know, I read the book by O'Shaughnessy about the Grenada invasion, and he talked about the policemen, and he says, but the Dominica police were unlike any other because we were more like an army. And I can see by the way you're dressed, you're not dressed as a regular policeman. You look like a soldier there with that machine gun.
We were Dominican soldiers.
That's right. So let me close that out. So you hear the shooting. What do you do?
So one of my cousins, who passed away recently, the oldest cousin, the one that actually used to go graze the cows with me, he joined the police force before me. And so he was standing guard at the government building, the ministry building downstairs. And he came up to the house breathless in his uniform, police uniform, he had a 303 rifle, because the non-SSU people had the less lethal weapons. And the 303 rifle was an old relic. So that's what he had. So he came literally soaking wet, with his rifle in uniform. I said, what's going on? What's that? He said they are attacking headquarters. So across the street was where the Prime Minister's house, but one of the SSU people, Swales, Dr. Ferrara's brother, was dating Josette, the Prime Minister's sister. This, so I called him, got another few. There were a couple more around in Murphy's Lane, and we got them. And we knew where our rally point would be. So we went down by the Windsor Park, and then we rallied, and then we started to fan out to take care of what needed to take care of. But when I got to headquarters that night, one SSU Constable Popo was shot twice in the chest he was guarding the gate.
Yeah, I've known Popo since I was about 6 years old because they lived on Kennedy Avenue. Yeah.
Right. And then Esprit who actually trained with me in Barbados, he got shot in the face by the gate. But what messed me up kind of was when I walked into the guard desk, the desk at the headquarters where that I saw one of my old friends, a senior, but old friends, Constable Alexander.
What is Alexander's first name?
I just got his first name recently and I forgot.
It's okay, but Constable Alexander.
I'll get it back.
Yeah.
But Alex, we called him Alex. Anyways, Alex was sitting there, shocked, but he wasn't, when I looked at him, he wasn't bleeding. When I went up, his stomach was big. He had a big stomach. Mm-hmm. When I looked, I saw the entry wound. I'm like, why is he not bleeding? There was a big yellowish piece of grease that had come up and blocked. So it wasn't bleeding there, but there was a big hole in his back.
Oh, was he dead already?
Yes, and just slumped on the chair. And that's when I was like, everybody involved in this foolishness need to pay. Because that was a horrible night. The commissioner of police, Mr.
Philip, Oliver N. Philip.
Mr. Philip, Oliver Philip, they tried to shoot, they shot at him and crashed his car right there by Boyd's Avenue.
Yeah, he was hit in the forehead, but the bullet grazed him.
But it grazed him. So it was a mess, and we had to go find. I remember when we went to pick up Newton down near the market, I remember some people tried to fire at us. So if I had back, I don't know. The point was, if somebody's gonna fire, then everybody got to fire, because you can't say nobody did. I mean, we were in such shock. And then you mentioned the part about the Louisiana part. We hadn't even known that part yet when we were fighting in the country. It's later on we found out that if these people had come in with the weapons, that Dominica would be a different country today. I honestly believe that.
Oh, without a doubt. Algie Murphy, I just met Algie Murphy's wife at the home of, not the home, at the funeral of Dr. Carissa Etienne, who was memorialized on Friday.
Yeah, I know,
yesterday. Eugenia Murphy. I will share with you, which is already recorded, that Algie Murphy broke the news of the plot to Mike Douglas and Rosie Douglas at the home of Hilarion Deja. And I'm the only person left alive from the 4 people who were there. Mm-hmm. Rosie is dead, Mike Douglas is dead, and of course Hilarion is dead. And when Algie told Mike what Patrick John was planning, Mike slapped his head and said, oh my God, Patrick John has signed a contract to coup his own country. And Rosie's sister, I think Myrna, is the goddaughter, don't look at a small country, is the goddaughter of Eugenia Charles. Because Eugenia Charles and J.B. Charles were very close to RBD, that is Douglas's father?
Eugenia,
Because
Miss Charles, I got it, Miss Charles. I was very
yes,
close with Miss Charles because I was one of the original YFM members,
yes,
the
yes,
Young
yes.
Freedom Movement, before she became Prime Minister.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Well,
Miss Charles, there was a
we interviewed
running,
her right here. We interviewed Eugenia Charles right here in '96, 10 days after Samora was born.
there
Right
was
here.
a thing, I saw it and I have the book.
Yes.
I read the book. I saw Miss Charles, there was a running joke we had when those of us who were guarding her at her house, and so we would say she was very friendly. She knew, and so we would talk. So they would say when they were in Parliament, Mike Douglas was the opposition leader, and Miss Charles were arguing fiercely. But then they standing on the porch at Miss Charles's house drinking, and then Mike would say, "That's my nenen."
Yes,
And
yes.
the
They were family
meaning
friends.
that's his godmother, because
Yes,
their
yes.
fathers were friends.
They're the
They're
planters. They were
friends.
planters. They were in the
Yes.
legislature. They were planters and they were in the legislature together.
They were on
So
nobility.
that's correct. You're correct. They were the local gentry. And so they were family friends. And so the decision was made to tell Eugenia Charles. And that is when Patrick John and the others were picked up. And then Algie Marty was sent to Guyana for security to get him out of the country. And of course, later on he gave testimony and the guys were convicted. But that morning, what did you feel? Were you afraid or were you what?
No, I was angry.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid. As a matter of fact, I ran down. While my cousin ran back up to Goodwill, I ran down to where the fire was. I was angry because remember we had gone through this stuff of going in the mountains and people arresting people like Dr. Honeychurch's father. My
Yes.
grandparents were at one point were afraid of going up to the mountains where they planted their food because the dreads and this is the thing, and my daughter has dreadlocks, but there was at the time a pure line and distinction between dreads and rastas in Dominica. One was that's how we perceived it. I did, but a lot of my friends did. The dreads were violent and they just had the locks. That was a hairstyle to them. The rastas were Bob Marley types who read the Bible, who ate their idols, and they were like Seventh-day Adventists.
Yes.
They were peaceful.
Yes. Yes.
And they did not, a lot of them did not agree with what the dreads were doing.
Yes.
Granted, I didn't like the Dread Act, and it was before my time, but cutting people's hair. But that was, there was a lot of violence and fear.
Yes.
At the time. So I was angry that all people decided to shoot at our own people.
Yes.
Patrick John's wife, Desiree, grew up, their house was up the street from us in Murphy's Lane.
Yes, yes. Kentish.
TK and all the rest of them, her brother, they grew up with us.
Yes.
And now you're gonna kill us.
Yes. Yes.
For what? And then sell half of our country.
That's right.
For prostitution and gambling.
Yeah.
I was angry.
Yeah. 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 And so did you discharge your weapon that day?
I did. A lot of us did. That's what I said. Everybody had to fire.
Yes, yes.
Because then nobody gonna say, well, this is the person that shot and this is the person that didn't shoot.
Yes, yes.
Everybody fired.
That's right. That's right. And that morning, of course, my very good friend, fellow cadet, Winston Filbert, passed away. Ambe passed away. He, of course, was at the prison. He told me how he shot Piper when Piper attacked
I wrote his eulogy.
Outstanding, outstanding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had the opportunity
to interview him. He died that day, and if I am being very honest, he should be honored by our country, because had it not been for what had happened at the prison, it was a multi-pronged attack.
Yes,
They were going to free the guys at the prison. They were going to take over the headquarters and take over the weapons. You know who the armorer was at the headquarters that they were looking for? That is my brother's uncle.
Mm.
And
What's his name?
just Abraham Fabian.
Okay.
His brother was the Minister of Health.
John Fabian. John Fabian is my very good friend.
That is my brother's father.
Didn't know that. But John and I go back to grammar school days. He was older than me, of course, but we were together with Ruzi in the independence movement.
Yes.
And when we went home, we went to see him at Grand Bay, and he was here. We talked when he was here. He was here at Hopkins, you know, I believe.
Yep, I know. I was in Maryland then.
Yes.
And
yes,
I talked to him because my brother was stationed at Fort Meade.
Yes.
His son.
But I know that Michelle said that she bought a 1,000-pound lock, a 1-ton lock, and they couldn't break the armory. They tried.
Yeah, they couldn't.
They couldn't break the armory.
And even if they had, Abraham went and hid upstairs, so they couldn't find him anyway. So
yeah. But I just want to say a moment of tribute. I agree with you on Winston Filbert, because by preventing the release of Patrick John and Malcolm Reed, he did two things. He saved the country, but you know, ironically, he also saved their lives. Because had they been released,
they'd be dead.
I don't think they'd have been dead.
They'd be dead. I can guarantee you that.
And may his soul rest in peace. So the coup is defeated. That is in 81. But in 83, you're also again involved in combat with the invasion of Grenada after the massacre at Fort Rupert by the People's Revolutionary Army of Maurice Bishop and his cabinet members. Tell us about that.
Ooh, man, look, you know, so we've come through that Dominica coup thing, and then here we are, we're hearing news on the radio, Eric Gary, the Prime Minister, had a coup attempt against Maurice Bishop. Maurice Bishop is dead. Bernard Cord.
Eric Gary had already been overthrown. But
yes,
Maurice Bishop.
Bernard Cord.
Bernard Cord, yeah.
And the rest of them, and that was Bishop's friend. Yeah. They were partners, and you know, there's a big old coup, and now we see Miss Charles going. So we in SSU, we like on edge. Because there's talk that this is not just about Grenada, it's a wider regional thing that's happening. Miss Charles going to talk to President Reagan, and then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in England. And I'm like, oh, next thing we know is we on orders. They said we're going to form a regional security force, and your Dominica SS is going to be part.
So who was the commander? Who was the commander of SSU at that time?
At that time, Lestrade.
Matthias Lestrade, who later became. Matthias Lestrade.
Inspector Matthias Lestrade from La Plaine. He was in charge of SSU, and then Station Sergeant Nicholas George.
Yes,
who indeed ran for the Corley-Ho constituency.
Yeah, my very good friend. He helped us with the revival of the Cadet Corps. So we call him Super. I call him Super because he later became a superintendent of police. So how many? So when they put you on standby, so the invasion was October 25th, 1983. When did you get to Grenada, and how did you get to Grenada?
We got we were activated like probably a week or so before, and then we were told you're all going to Grenada. So we all were gonna meet, all the US military, everybody was going to meet in Barbados, and then everybody flew from Barbados to there.
What aircraft did you fly?
Liat. I think we flew Liat, but I think they were chartered though. Leeward, yeah. I think they were chartered because it was all just police. And then when we got there, we huddled, we got our orders, And next thing we know, we were flying. But when we went on C-130s.
Yes.
We went on the U.S. military aircraft to Barbados. By the time we got there, the 82nd Airborne and the others had already started fighting. So we were, all orders were to man the police stations, police, headquarters police, around the country, in a country we don't know. so they split us up into different units and then sent us to different police precincts. And
were you in St. George's or were you in the country?
I was in St. George's.
Okay. How did the Grenadians respond to you?
Oh, they were very, very, very nice. They were thankful, actually. And let me go back to my trip in Dominica, because sometimes things take years for you to realize what you've done in your past. I went to SMA, the secondary school, the St. Mary's Academy, and the principal, I went to make a donation at the school, and I sat talking to the principal. She's from Grenada. And while talking, I said, "You from Grenada?" I was in Grenada, and I showed her the pictures of us being in Grenada. She said, "Oh my God, I was 11 years old, and I remember how grateful we were when you all came." And from that, the whole conversation was about that for the rest of the day.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't know the impact we have on people's lives. And look at that. One of the young ladies is now the principal. She's married to a Dominican, and she's the principal of the high school I went to.
Yeah, amazing. And that's something. And well, the invasion, when I look at it, had no choice but to be done, because once the massacred Bishop, Hudson Austin, who just passed away this year, placed the whole country on the 24-hour curfew. People couldn't go to see their animals. They couldn't go to shop. It was just hell on earth. And, nobody in the islands had the capacity, because the Grenadians had anti-aircraft artillery. They had mortars, rocket launchers, machine guns. They had armored cars. None of the other islands, except maybe Jamaica or Grenada, or maybe Trinidad, had a few of those things. But not even the Jamaican army, I think, had the caliber of weapons that they had. So they would not have been able to have gone in there. And so it was no choice but the United States. And that's just a fact that I've had to come to accept as reality. And the Grenadians now have elections, and they can vote their government in, vote them out.
Yes.
A lot of us at that time supported Bishop, but Bishop basically violated basic principles of rule of law. He never called an election. He closed down Parliament. He suspended habeas corpus. You could be arrested and kept in jail without bail for as long as the government wanted you to. None of those things were acceptable in the system we've grown up in. You see, we grew up in a system where you get arrested, you have to be charged, you have to have a day in court, you have to have a preliminary hearing, you have to have a bail hearing if you can get bail, your lawyer can come and see you in jail, your family and so on. And the law courts, they may not be today as effective as they should, but that is how we grew up. And we were kids. We were teenagers. Bishop had gone to law school in England and should have known better, because he was more educated and had been a lawyer. He
was one of the most educated leaders in the Caribbean.
That's right. So he just made
But you know what scared me? What scared me about Grenada, me personally, was what I saw. Now, today, Grenada has a beautiful international airport, the Point Salines International Airport. Or I don't know if they named it after Prime Minister Bishop.
I think it is now Bishop.
Okay. Underneath where the runway was being built, I had never seen so many weapons, brand new weapons in my life. AK brand new. I took, and a lot of us brought back home. And I can say that now because I turned mine back to the armory. when I resigned. Brand new AK-47. I brought back a brand new AK-47, a brand new Russian, I think it's a 32 Makarov, and all the rounds I needed. I left all my clothes. I was picking coconuts with AK-47 in Davis.
Amazing.
Literally. And they still remember it back because that's all they were talking about. We remember when you were shooting that AK-4, that whatever. They didn't remember the name of the gun. But the weapons I saw there could not have been for Grenada at all. The amount of US cash that was there. I mean, not what the US brought, what was underneath there. It had to be something larger than Grenada.
Well, you're
And
saying apart
those
from the
of us
weapons,
who
you
can
also saw
think,
money as well? Apart from weapons, you saw money?
man, one of our Dominican friends found a briefcase full of 100, the brand new $100 US bills, and gave it to the Bajan army, and we were mad.
Amazing.
Lots and lots. And there were a lot of Cubans working there. I mean, we the ones who put them around. And I hope nobody who comes and targets me after this interview airs, because that's a long time ago.
No, I mean, it's history that has to be told. There were Cubans there.
Yes, but it was, I think it was a bigger regional struggle, a geopolitical struggle, because that could not have been for Grenada.
Yes, indeed.
And any one of us from Dominica that you talk to and saw those and brought back with them will tell you what we saw was not normal.
Indeed. Let me ask you this. Did you ever have to discharge a weapon in Grenada?
No.
Okay. So the Grenadians welcomed you. They were not
Yes,
antagonistic.
and we were patrolling. So and they were actually helped us a lot. I mean, look, it is very, very, it's a fearful situation to go into a country you don't know. You don't know the people.
Hey, sweetie, I hope you've not lost power. Let me pause now for a moment. Yes. Okay, good. I just paused it. So that
Okay.
made them, I'm not sure if it was me, but in any event, but the people were friendly and you made friends.
Yes, and so because we didn't know, I mean, when you don't know who's the enemy, you don't know anybody. You don't know who's your friends, you don't know enemies. But the people really, they saw us, although we were dressed in military uniform. They actually supported us, and they helped make our jobs a lot easier.
But for something that must be understood by the international community that maybe is not well understood, that there are a couple of things that I think favored the invasion. Number one, in the sub-region, we are as one family. We play cricket together. In fact, you may have been trained in Barbados with some of the same Grenadian policemen. I'm not sure if you met any of them that you may have known.
Mm-hmm. We trained with St. Lucians and a whole bunch of others from the Caribbean.
And that the people in that area intermarry, and they speak the same language, and they have the same basic culture. And even with the United States, because the islands involved are English-speaking countries that came out of the whole British route, that, do you know there's a cadet colleague of ours, Roy Shillingford, who jumped in the invasion?
Yeah.
So you are there as a Dominican police commando, but in the invading forces was a Dominican cadet from the SMA, Roy Shillingford. I called him. We were supposed to do an interview, but we haven't done it yet. He's in Philadelphia. So the people in the invasion were coming, were speaking English, just like the Grenadians, and they had a similar culture. In fact, do you know Maurice Bishop's pilot? I have his book right there. His name is Gregory Guy or something like that. He was in the U.S. Army in Vietnam.
Oh.
And when when they went to his home to arrest him, the paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne went into his closet and saw his Vietnam uniform with his decorations. And he says, "Whose uniform is that?" He said, "That's my uniform." Because after Vietnam, he took the GI Bill studied
Went to
aviation
school.
in Texas and went back and worked for Liat. And the guy didn't arrest him. He said, take that tunic and hang it in your car. And so whenever you stop, show
Yep, that's it.
them your tunic. His book, you must get it for you can get it on Amazon. It's called Under the Tattooed Sky, a Grenadian in Vietnam.
Under the
Tattooed Sky.
Okay.
I'll send you the link. It's a very, in fact, I tried to reach out to him to interview him because he was Bishop's cousin. So
Okay.
after he trained in Texas, he came back to fly for Liat, and during the revolution was flying Bishop around. I think they had a small plane or something. So the closeness between the islands and the United States made for the invasion, I believe, also to be a success.
Yes.
And I met many Grenadians to this day who thank Miss Charles for standing up for Grenada, because she had studied in Grenada for sixth form. Because in those days, the convent did not have a sixth form.
Right.
So she also had a Grenada connection. So thank you for your service, for rendering service to democracy in Grenada. Now you come back to Dominica and you decide to join the U.S. Army. Tell us, before you do that, tell us about yourself and your opinion of Chief Oliver and Philip.
You know, Mr. Philip and his deputy, Mr. Pierre, Hensley Pierre, who just passed away. You know, those were two strict guys, man. They were very strict. I mean, they were just in appearance, in bearing. I mean, they embodied what you would want to be as a policeman or as a professional person. Mr. Pierre, I mean, Mr. Philip, you know, I don't know the dealings between, you know, when they pass down the orders for us to go on missions. But we had a lot of missions. We were always gone. We were always in the mountains, in the woods or somewhere. But they, you know, it kept us active and it kept us feeling like we were doing something important for the country. So that's how I felt. But
Would you say he was an inspirational leader?
Yes. Yeah, he was. He was very soft-spoken, though. I mean, soft-spoken when we had our meetings, you know, the all hands, what they call all hands meetings. Now, they weren't calling it that then. But when we were down in that meeting room down and we were listening, everybody had to sit there. You had to sit at attention.
Tell the audience, for those who never heard him speak, his manner of speech and the quality of his language. Tell us about that.
He was brilliant. I mean, I think he studied in England. He did a lot of training with Scotland Yard too.
Yeah, he studied at Hendon Police Academy in London.
Right.
Scotland Yard, yes.
I think
here also with the FBI. He studied at Quantico also here with the FBI.
One of my very good friends, Evans John.
Yes.
I was just at his house in Canefield. We were actually, he studied at Hendon too. And you can tell these guys, I mean, the way they carry themselves, you know, you just want to be like them. And from a young person, I mean, a young policeman, I just wanted to be like them. But I left the force after 5 years because I just didn't see, I saw some of them guys who were calling themselves senior constables. I didn't see how I could get to his position. And so after 5, I'm like, because I don't want to be a senior constable after 30 years. And you can tell from where I have my journey that was not where I needed to be.
You had ambition. So
I live my life in 5 year spans. And if in 5 years I didn't get to where I didn't see where I could get to, then I left. So
you joined, how did you get to join the U.S. Army?
Well, after I left the police force actually because of a disagreement with one of our senior officers. I'm not even going to go into it, but I left and they told me I would never get a job in Dominica, but the very next day, I was working at DBS. I left afternoon, I got trained on to read the news, and the next day at 6 a.m. I read the national news on DBS.
Outstanding.
It has something to do with Commissioner Phillip, but I'm not going to go to it. It's too personal. It's personal.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
you're
the other party is not aware, so I don't want to put them out of camera. We can talk about it. I think I told you part of it.
Yes. But you were at the radio station for how long?
5 years. And that was a good, very, very good experience, learning to interview politicians and business people and regular folks on the street, and learning to communicate to the nation in a way that they understand what you're trying to tell them, whether it's national, local, national, regional news or international news. Put it in a context. And I learned that from Charmaine Green Brown was the news director, and Tim Durant was the general manager. But the two people I learned from, and one in particular, Dr. Steinberg Henry, and I'm so glad that I can call him doctor, because he's been through a lot of challenges, but that's one of the most brilliant people I know.
He's a very bright guy, very bright.
He taught me to think philosophically. And yes. I was when I got my PhD, I actually told him, man, why are you don't have yours, and you taught me to think that way. But then he had gotten blind, but then he went through his challenges and he got it. And I was so happy to call him and tell him, finally, because two of the people, John Lowe Black, who was doing sports at the time, is now a PhD.
Yeah, John Lowe Black, Jolo.
Yes, Jolo. And so we got it, and he's the one kind of inspiring us. I'm like, where's yours? But now he's joined, so I had to tell him, welcome to the club. But I stayed at DBS and then migrated to St. Thomas. Worked in St. Thomas.
And St. Thomas is US Virgin Islands. That's the US Virgin Islands.
Yes, the US Virgin Islands. And then after about a year, I just was like, let me just do something else. I joined the army, because when I looked at how these guys were in Grenada with us, I mean, I'm like, I want to be like them.
How was the relationship between the Caribbean troops and policemen and the U.S. Armed Forces?
Man, they were giving us their uniforms, their hats, they were exchanging things, we were exchanging stuff with them. But then I realized that's something they do in war. But it was nice. That was our first experience.
So they were friendly.
Going to war.
They were friendly.
Very, very professional. Man, these guys, they knew what they were doing. They were organized. I'm like, I want to be like, and because remember, some of the SF, the Special Forces guys, had already come down to train us. Yeah. The SSU. And, so we were accustomed to seeing them, the Green Berets, come down to train us. So like, I want to be like those guys. And when I joined the army. And that's another thing.
But you said to me the exam was 6 hours, but you finished it in 2 hours.
That is what I'm going to tell Dominicans and the young kids about the education in Dominica. I had never seen a multiple choice question in my life before I took the Army ASVAB test, the Army Placement Test. All our exams at SMA, all what I remember were all essay type questions. And when you sat them GCEs, and especially with history, them yellow legal pads you all use as lawyers, you had to write how many pages of that thing for the GCs for one question. So when I saw the ASVAB, I put my hands up and I told it's 6 hours, it pretty much took almost all day. in St. Thomas at the federal building. So I said, I put my hands up, and when I looked, he said, open. It was a black staff sergeant, but he's from Puerto Rico. And I put my hands up. I said, he came. I said, you gave me the answers. So I did. So he, like, where? I said, I'm looking at the answers there. He said, oh, no, those are just multiple choice. You just pick the right one. I said, so they put them on there for you so you can pick them? I said, but I can see them. So anyways, he went back and he said, well, just take the exam and just circle, you know, you had this thing, you just circle whichever ones. So in about 2 hours or so, I put my hands up, and he said, he came to the thing and being sarcastic, he said, what? You don't have the answers now? I said, no, I'm finished. He said, what do you mean you're finished? And it's kind of, it has English, chemistry, math, you know, geography. They design it that way so they can determine by your score what field you would best be suited for the military. So I said, no, I'm done. I'm done. I said, I told you, you gave me the answers. So he took it. He said, well, you have the rest of the, I said, I'm done. I'm finished. You go correct that thing. He took his little correcting thing, put it on there, and I aced the bloody thing. So I got a very high score, so I was able to get into the medical field. The other thing about that is he was offering me all kinds of things, right? Like things that sounded really nice. So if I'm saying that, so if parents who are listening or kids who intend to join the military, a recruiter's job is to put you in. They will tell you all kind of lies. Some of them will. Research what they're trying to sell you first. Yes, the US military is a good place, but not every job in there you would like. They have what they call MOSs. I don't know if they change it to military occupational specialties. I don't know if they changed the names, but I know they changed the designations. Like I was 91 Alpha, which is a medic, and then 91 Charlie, which was a nurse, but those things have changed. Those designations changed. Know what you want. And number two, what was most important to me going into the Army, especially at 26, was what job can I get in the Army that is transferable anywhere in the world without having to do anything extra? And the medical field, and I said, but everybody gets sick all over the world. And if you get nursing training or medical training in the US, there's no better place to get it. So I went that route. So for kids listening, when you are trying to think of a career, think beyond what you're going to do today. Because I was thinking, when I leave the Army, because I don't know if I want to spend my entire career there. When I go to school, because school was always foremost in my mind, when I go to school, what job can I have that I don't have to struggle while I'm going to school to make a living and take care of my family? And I chose nursing because I had a nursing license that was transferable throughout all 50 states.
Amazing, amazing. So, Dr. Augustine, you take the exam in St. Thomas, and how soon do you get to go to the mainland United States?
It took a year. I took a year off before I started training because funny enough, I never knew I had umbilical hernia until the military physical in Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
All the time I was in the police force, when Dr. Winston was diagnosing me with, and I'm not saying that to belittle anybody. I'm just saying what happened. Dr. Winston would always say I had ulcers, and he would give me stuff for ulcers. But I also noticed that when that horrible pain hit me, my navel was big. And then I felt like when it was hurting, something was inside of the little pouch that came out of my navel.
Yeah.
It was my intestines that were coming out and sticking through there. There was a little hole. It was my small intestines, and then it would bend and kink. But I only learned that when the surgeon in St. Thomas, who was a black colonel who lived right next door to my uncle. He was the surgeon that was going to do the surgery. They sent me back to St. Thomas, and they said, you need to have that done before we can put you in.
So you did
He did it on a Friday night, on a Friday morning, and the Friday night I was in the club.
What? You're tough.
But then it started bleeding.
Oh.
So then next day he cussed me out.
Yes, of course. You got too quick. So okay, so it took a year, you had the surgery. So when did you come into your basic training?
So in 1989, October 1989, I went to 1988. October 1988, I what they call it, delayed entry program. They had a delayed entry program in the military, so I took that to have the surgery. And once I was cleared, then October 89, I went to basic training in El Paso, Texas, in the desert.
How was that?
And man, look, I had never seen heat like that, number one, but they say the desert is hot, and it's true. It's hot in the day, but remember, for the first time on graduation day, I saw snow for the first time in December. So El Paso is from hot to snow.
Wow.
But I don't think they get much snow, but it was that year, that was the first time I saw snow. But it was very tough training. It was El Paso is the base for air defense artillery, so it's tough. It's a tough base, but I like it. My brother just retired from there at the teaching at the Sergeant Major's Academy.
Outstanding. So you were in El Paso, and then you graduated in 88, and then you went to?
So the next thing was go to San Antonio to advanced initial training. That's where you get for almost all the military, everybody that goes, whether Air Force, Navy, if you go into the medical field, you go to El Paso. That's the Academy of Health Sciences.
Okay.
So and then there. And
you were trained at that time to be an Army nurse?
Yes. No, a medic.
Combat medic.
Combat medic, which is the same as not quite the level of paramedic yet. What's the other one before paramedic?
EMT?
EMT. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, to be a medic, an Army medic, you actually have to go to, for those of us at Fort Bragg, we had to go to Fayetteville State and get certified as an EMT, and then actually go on rides and with the ambulance companies.
Amazing. So once you got that, did you have like a graduation day? Did you get a certificate? Okay.
Yeah.
And at that time, did you get rank? Did you move to like corporal? Or did you move up rank?
Well, private first class. From private to private first class. And then after we finished, and in each of those schools, I can actually show you. The soldier of the cycle. Every day I was always the first in the class, although I was older than most of them kids.
Yes.
But I already had a lot of experience. So
yes,
with stuff, so it didn't matter much. Anyways, that from there, then after that, when you finish AIT, you know, advanced initial training, which is your job you're going to do in the military. But there are special jobs that they try to recruit you for. And one of them, they were asking us, hey, how many of you want to be a paratrooper? What is that? How many of you want to jump out of planes? No other Black person put up their hands. And so I put up my hands because what I knew, and from the conversations in Grenada, I knew that the war fighters got promoted quicker in the US military. The infantry and people with special designations like airborne, if you jump out of planes, if you a SEAL, if you special force, and to get to any of the special forces, you must go through airborne school. Because that is where they will test your mettle. And if you can make it through airborne school, because when you're running, they call it the 100-mile club because you really do, during that time, run more than 100 miles. But to stay in that class, you cannot be more than 2 steps behind the person in front of you when you're running. If you are more than 2 steps, they will pull you out of the formation, warn you, send you back. And if you do it again, you going back to your unit. And that is the biggest shame.
Oh boy.
Because your unit, your first sergeant trusted you because the unit has to pay for you to go to that school.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Yes, the unit has its pot of funds, so they pay for you to go. And for you to go back fail,
They wasted their money.
You can just give up your career because it's gonna be a big mark on your military record. Anyways, I decided to go to airborne school and made it. And then they tried to recruit me for one more thing. Because once you make it through, when they see the people that are going to make it through, then they try to recruit you for the Rangers. Because the Ranger class usually starts right after the airborne school ends. And for you to be Ranger, you must be airborne.
Yes.
So that's where they recruit you, right there at Fort Benning, Georgia.
So they recruit you as a Ranger?
Yeah, but I didn't take that one, though. I went to Fort Bragg. I said, I'll just go to Fort Bragg. And if I think about it later, I will do that. But
and Fort Bragg is in North Carolina?
Yes. Well, it's Fort Liberty.
Yes.
Because it was named after a Confederate trader.
Braxton Bragg, he was a Confederate general.
I'm just going to say that. He was a trader. So,
well, that's true. That's without a doubt. That's why they changed it. Now, tell me when you met the famous Dominican paratrooper, Dory Drago.
Now, yes. Before I go into Dory, I want to tell, I always like to relate my experiences to something that people can think about and hopefully it can help them. You say drop nuggets, drop pearls along the way. I believe my life and most people's lives are like a relay race. We don't know, we know we have a baton and we're running. We're going to hand it to somebody and then they take it and run. In our lives, we like that baton. Me, I am like the baton and I've been passed on by teachers because from primary school to SME, when you finish secondary school and you're looking for jobs, a teacher has to be, you need references. In college, when you finish, you have to get references. So these are people that are passing you and they put in their name on your life and saying, I trust this person. And to me, it's like every step of my life, there was somebody there that I didn't know, but it seemed that that person was waiting for me.
Yes.
And if I didn't get there, they would have never known, and I would have never known. So if you don't make that step to go, you will never know and meet the people that are waiting to take you to your to help you along your journey to your destination, your final destination. So when I got to Fort Bragg, I knew absolutely nobody. And there in the line, in the human resources, which we call PAC, I heard my name shouted, but it was shouted with an accent, and then he said something in patois. And I'm like, huh? Did I just hear patois? I know I didn't just. And then this short sergeant came up. And he said, Drygo. And he said, Augustine. He started to talk patois. And I said, yeah. He told me he's from Grand Bay. We talked, and he said, and we just became, he started looking out for me.
So did he know you from
until
SMA?
I ended up living at his house with him.
Did he know you from SMA? He knew you from Dominica then?
No, he knew me by the first 3 numbers of my social security number.
How is that possible?
Because it was gotten in St. Thomas.
Oh, I see. So I see.
580.
Okay, 580.
If you got it in at the time, and he had his, and his wife did too.
Okay.
So he said when he saw 580 and he saw the name, and he said, I know that name from DBS, from Police somewhere. And
yes,
then he came and he thought, and we became, he was kind of like my mentor. He was already a sergeant, married.
Amazing. And that's a famous story. I just want to take a moment at this time in honor of Dr. Sam Christian, who himself became a major in the U.S. Army, combat surgeon, General Eddie Charles, John Fingal, that the Dominicans have a very illustrious record in the U.S. Armed Forces. And we have a lot to be thankful for, that the Dominicans have gone on and distinguished themselves as terrific soldiers and good public servants. So in a nutshell, tell me about your Army service and your time in Iraq.
So right after we came, and I'll make that short. So right after we came back from Grenada, right after we came back from when I joined the Army and stuff, in 1989, they started talking about Panama. I'm like, right after I just got to Fort Bragg, not long, and we deployed to Panama because they got to remove Manuel Noriega. So we had to set up the hospitals at Howard Air Force Base in Panama, set up the hospitals and clinics and support all the troops. But we always went with the A2nd because we were the airborne medical arm of 44th Med and 36th Medical Company, which I was in. We were the ambulance, and yep, that's it. That's Saudi Arabia there.
That's you right there.
Yes.
Okay.
That's in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
That's during the. So after we finished with Noriega, we then not.
So did you jump into Panama or no?
No. We didn't jump. We flew in, and we because we had we were prepared to if we had to, and even a lot of the equipment that we had on the C5s and the C-141s, that's the military aircraft. We had them rigged so that if we needed to jump, we would. but we didn't have to because the SEALs and the Special Forces had already landed. So they had cleared the way for us to come in already. So right after that, then we ended up with the picture you just showed. It's time to go to, then President George H.W. Bush decided he wants to get rid of Saddam Hussein.
Yes.
Or at least get him out of Kuwait. So there was a lot of, during my time in the military, there was a lot of geopolitical nonsense going on. I mean, global nonsense that we had to put our lives at. We were deployed so much from Fort Bragg that we used to complain that we're not the police of the world. I don't know if people hear that anymore, but we're like, are we the world's policemen? Because we are always gone. We're not home, especially during the holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving. I don't think I ever spent any one of them at home.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to show you General Eddie Charles.
Yes.
Was the Adjutant General of the National Guard in the Virgin Islands. He's with Miss Dominica. She's I think it's Shillingford.
Boyd's Avenue.
You remember him?
Yes. I've spoken to him, and I will continue to speak to him.
He's a very, very fine gentleman.
In that picture, he's a colonel before he got his star.
That's right. He's a colonel there. Yes, indeed.
And look at him with the Dominica, the lady with the Dominica dress. That's a cool.
Yeah, I think that's Independence celebration.
Yes, this is a cool flag, isn't she?
Shillingford.
Shillingford, yeah, one of them. I know, I recognize. So yeah.
So anyway, so after Panama, tell us how you got to. And before you do Iraq, tell me about your first jump.
That was in jump school. Well, for you to graduate jump school, first you try from a 50-foot tower, then you do a 250-foot tower, and then you have to graduate. You have to make 5 successful jumps.
Was your first jump difficult or was it easy?
Meaning you ain't dead.
Okay. All right.
If you didn't die on the 5 and you didn't break anything, then it was successful.
Yes, indeed. So let me ask you this.
It was scary, and every single jump after that was scary. And here's the thing. Again, courage is not the absence of fear.
Right.
I wanted to be an airborne soldier because I was afraid of heights.
Oh boy. So that wanted to break the fear.
So and every time I was on the plane, every time it says a jump, man, I'm like, man, will this be the last one? My parachute doesn't open or something happens.
Yes.
But because of that fear, I relied 100% every single time I jumped on my training.
Yes.
If I just do what I was trained, I don't have to rely just on myself. I just have to do what I was trained, and the fear will be there, but I will accomplish what I need to do.
Indeed.
And every single time it worked. Until one time they dropped us in trees and I hurt my back. And I stopped after that. But it wasn't, sometimes the wind, depending if the wind is more than 22 knots, then they have to stop the jump because the wind will carry you in the parachute and you won't be able to control it. So they try not to, but sometimes the people on the ground don't tell them up there what are the correct wind speed. And so they drop you anyway. So we were all drifting in the pine trees. The drop zones are 5 seconds and 10 seconds. The plane has 5 seconds or 10 seconds to drop you on both sides.
Okay.
Before the next plane comes, you just have a short window. So is just go, 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 go. Red light, go. Green light, go. And then you just depend on your training to take you through.
And what's the highest jump you've ever had?
Well, we jumped from 2,500 feet, but you should ask the lowest jump.
What's the lowest jump you've ever had?
The lowest jump is a combat jump at 400 feet.
400 feet. Do you almost think? So I just want to show Dr. Sam Christian.
Yes.
At that time, he's a captain. He'd not gotten his majors.
Right.
Is that a maple?
His insignia.
His insignia.
His rank.
Yes, his rank. And you can see the two medical symbols on his lapel.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So
tell me how you get to Iraq.
All right. And here I'm giving all our military secrets. Those are not classified. So they said we learned. It was then that I learned in August of 1990. I learned what CNN meant. The news network?
Yes.
I heard it in Panama because of an incident that happened when the SEALs landed early that morning.
Okay.
That CNN and the news media were there when they were landing and they got shot at because they knew somehow it had leaked that they were going to land.
Yeah.
And almost caused a mess. So they started calling them, we started calling them in Panama, the classified news network.
Oh, wow.
So it was on CNN, I knew to pack my bags, that we were going to Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
We started listening to the news and we started hearing President Bush, H.W. Bush, talking about lining sand and, and what they're not gonna do. And General Colin Powell started ramping it up. So we knew General Schwarzkopf and the rest of them, we knew now, okay, pack your bags. And then an alert came at about 2:30 in the morning. Let's go. And we were sitting, the 82nd started going first. And then they stopped, they said, they're sitting for all these days sitting in the hot sun at Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina. 82nd just going and no medics. No medics other than the one-line medic that would probably be in a platoon or in a squad. So they said, 44th, you all need to go. And then we took off. We went through Tehran, Spain, and then after how many hours we were in Saudi Arabia. I had never seen heat like that. I mean, heat to the point where you pour a bottle of water and it does not wet the sand. It doesn't wet the sand. And I think I could have been selling salt because, when you sweat, it doesn't, you see all the salt on your skin. And what was scary is if you don't sweat, though, people could be getting heat stroke. So we saw a lot. We set up hospitals, the MASHs, the mobile army support hospitals, the combat armies, so the CASHs, because they were all, one of my friends actually from Antigua, he was in the combat army. He was an operating room technician. And
let me ask you a question. Do you find a lot of people from the former British West Indies in the U.S. Armed Forces?
Yeah, man, a lot.
So let me tell you a little. It's a joke, really. So one year during Caribbean American Heritage Month with the same ICS, which honored you in 2020 or 2021, the State Department sent a statement saying, "We congratulate the members of the U.S. Armed Forces from the Caribbean. We estimate about 600. I laughed.
Man, there's a
I
whole
said
lot
600.
more.
At the Andrews Air Force Base here, alone, there are 600.
Just at Andrews. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because
I mean, there are thousands.
a
What
lot.
happens? You see, what happens is history is an interesting thing because the people from the British West Indies have anglicized names and speak English. And some of them have long antecedents in the United States through family relations. They don't always appear to be foreign. I mean, look at Colin Powell, for instance.
Right.
So they don't always appear to be from the Caribbean. You understand?
Holder.
Let me give you a joke, right? So Reginald Vigilant is from Dominica. He's my cousin. He owns a company called Omni. So
yeah, I know Vicky. He was with us at the gala.
That's right. So I have a picture of you and him. So Vicky
I have
says
a lot
to
of
me,
pictures of us.
I'd like you to meet our president. So when I went to the meeting, I met, a guy who looked like an African-American, maybe a little Hispanic and so on. Lieutenant General Sam Emerson. So I said to him, we West Indians, we're hardworking people. He says, what are you talking about, man? I'm a West Indian myself. He was from the Virgin Islands. He was the commander of the 82nd Airborne. And he was once Deputy Secretary of Defense for all the military academies, like
wow.
Annapolis, Air Force. Sam Emerson. I mean, he was a very close friend of Colin Powell.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. I'll show you his picture. So why do you believe there's so many West Indians in the U.S. Armed Forces?
Well, let's see. If many of us had parents or resources to take us straight to school, we probably would have taken that short route.
Yes.
But a lot of us joined the military because
this is General Emerson.
Okay. All right. Lieutenant General.
Yeah. So he's a 3-star in that picture. See what it says here?
Yeah. St. Croix.
That's right. Yes. So that was a joke.
So he used to be at Fort Campbell.
Yes.
Yeah, because he air assault.
Yeah, well, actually, I was wrong. He was in Vietnam, but not 82nd, 101st.
He was the 101st Airborne. That's Fort
right.
Campbell.
That's right. So we have West Indians who went all the way up to Secretary of Defense. We
have West Indians who was Attorney General Eric Holder.
Yes, that's right. So it's very fascinating.
We have a vice president.
That's right, Kamala. That's right. So tell me about Iraq in summary, and then we'll go to Mihari and your PhD in the EPA, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, so the first, I made we made.
But before you tell me about Iraq, tell me when you got married and how many children you have. The name of your wife and your kids.
Oh, well, that was after. Well, I got married in 2016, but I've had other marriages, so that's one. My kids, I have 4 kids.
Give us the names.
3 girls. Tamara is an ER physician here in Cincinnati. Yeah. Sarah, the second one, she's a psychologist.
Yes.
In Tennessee. The third one, Jalen, she is a doctor of nursing in Louisiana. And then the last one is a son, is in North Carolina doing his thing. He's young.
Yeah. What's he doing in North Carolina? He's
a teenager.
Okay, he's not joined the service yet.
No, he's still in school.
Very good. Congratulations. And your wife's name?
Just started being a teenager. Well, sure. As a matter, he'll be actually a teenager on the 10th of next month. He'll be 13.
Outstanding. Congratulations in advance. What's your wife's name?
Juanita.
Was she in the 82nd Airborne?
No, but she was in the army. She was, I don't know what army she was in because a lot of the training we got, she didn't get it. She was in the army too, though. She spent 9 years in the army. She's from Dayton, Ohio.
Outstanding. Is she in the medical field?
No, her degree is in healthcare management,
Okay.
but she's a lead in human resources at the Environmental Protection Agency where I work, where I used to work.
Outstanding. Outstanding. How long did you spend at the EPA?
17 years.
17 years. But in federal service, including the military, how long is that? Service?
25 years.
25 years. Outstanding. Thank you for your service again. So you're in Iraq. Did you jump into Iraq or you drove into Iraq?
No. There was only one jump mission that we were supposed to go in to jump in to Kuwait. We had our parachutes on. We were ready to jump. What we were going to do was so dangerous that I thank God that mission was canceled. And if people that want to think that everybody that wear a uniform is brave, a lot of us have a lot of fear, especially when you go into a mission where they tell you to write letters to each other to send to give to your family in case you don't come back.
Yes.
We were supposed to jump into Kuwait and then set up the chemical tents, decontamination tents. I think I told you about that already.
Yes.
And we had everything set up, ready to go. And there was a phone. There were phones we were in a big hangar, dressed up with our parachutes ready to go, equipment and stuff ready, loaded, sling loaded. And then there was a red phone. That was the big phone that everybody kept looking, the first sergeant, the sergeant major, they all looking. And we all excited in a way because we would get the reef around our jump wings, which would say you made and get a star you get a star on the jump wings in the middle, a gold star that says you had a combat jump. And so we were looking for it, but it was dangerous because we're going to set up. They're telling us, well, Iraq did not agree to the United Nations rules of engagement, so they can shoot at us when we're coming down. You're not supposed to, but they said they will shoot at you, so be ready to. So then they said, okay, we'll just jump, whatever happens. But then I can't remember the time, but it was late. Then the phone rang and everybody's sitting there waiting. The chaplain had already prayed for us. And then they said, oh, mission canceled. So that was the only jump that we were supposed to have, and they canceled it. And one of my friends, his picture is actually on the wall. His picture is right there. Good friend, Master Sergeant, he died in Iraq, the second Iraq war, Afghanistan, Iraq. He died as a Special Forces Master Sergeant. But he was really upset that they canceled that jump because somehow his father is from Little Rock, Arkansas. And I still, Kevin Moorhead. His father was a sergeant major in the National Guard or Reserves in Arkansas. So he really wanted to impress his father. And he wanted that star, the combat wings. But I was happy the thing was dangerous, so we didn't go. Thank God.
Yes. So any comment on just the war in general, or before you get out and go into the
school?
Yeah, the Mihari.
Yeah. Well, look, I would encourage any young person, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, and you don't know what route to take. I am not a recruiter for the military, but I would encourage them to join it because the benefits and the training and the things you get in there is not available to the general public. Even when you leave the army, even after, when you leave after, if you leave 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 20 years, you have so many benefits. I mean, like getting a house without any down payment because Uncle Sam, your big uncle, is going to say, I have trillions of dollars. Give that person that house if they qualify. And if they can't pay for it, we'll take care of that. They take care of your health. I mean, yeah, the VA has had issues, but I think it is, yep, that's my friend. He's right there.
Yeah.
Hang on.
He died in Ramadi, yeah. He died in Ramadi.
Yes. Look. Can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
See
yes,
us?
yes.
We got
Yeah.
promoted together.
Okay, he's next to you.
No, he's the one on the left.
Okay.
Lakani's in the middle, and then he's the tall one in the back.
Yes, yes. He's from Little Rock. Yes, yes. May his soul rest in peace.
See,
You're just
that's
33
I
years
had
old.
to give his father a lot of those
Okay.
because we got promoted together actually in Saudi Arabia. That was our promotion ceremony in Saudi Arabia that I just showed you.
Yes, indeed.
So he sacrificed his life for our country. So
Yes, yes. May his soul rest in peace.
yes,
Yes, indeed.
he and another. I lost two of my friends.
Yes.
We were all in that. Goodwin was not in that picture. He didn't get promoted with us in Saudi, but
yes.
they got killed almost back to back next to each other.
And in the U.S. Armed Forces, you know, so that historians can know that the U.S. Armed Forces has been at the leading edge of racial integration in U.S. society. In fact, it was the first major organization to be integrated in 1948.
Yes, in the whole U.S.
In the whole U.S. before the civilian, and that was the U.S. Army Air Corps, and then of course that became Air Force. So tell me, what were your experiences in the Army with regard to race? I mean, that was not an issue.
As a matter of fact, Moorhead, coming from the Caribbean, I didn't know color.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, we talk to everybody. So Moorhead and all the rest of those guys, since basic training, I had a whole lot of white friends.
Yes.
And the few black guys were there, they were like, why are you talking to them? Why are you sitting? I said, man, these people, if we go to war, these are the people that are gonna have our backs and we're gonna have their backs. So we got to know them. So I was hanging out with those guys. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten in my life about financial stuff and about managing my financial affairs was from a white sergeant first class who was our platoon sergeant in basic training in El Paso. Yes. Drill Sergeant Fricky. Yes. Fricke, and I wish I see that man again.
Yes.
Because when I got there, I had applied to school to Berkeley College of Music. I wanted to do music, and I wanted to major in guitar performance. And I had applied, but I hadn't gotten any response from the school. So I just joined the Army. And when I came back from Puerto Rico, from the MEP station, getting the physical, then I had already taken the oath. That was after the surgery. I got the oath, and then when I went back to St. Thomas and passed by the post office, in my mailbox was the acceptance letters to school, a scholarship. But I couldn't go because when I took it back to the federal building, the recruiter said, you took the oath, and if you break that oath, you can go to jail. I didn't research it. I didn't ask anybody. I just said, okay.
You're not going to jail.
Yeah, I know, because that was bogus. when I got to Texas to basic training, Drill Sergeant Freaky I told him what happened, and I had my packet for the school. And he said, if you want to leave, you can leave now because you have 6 months. 6 months where you can. I'm trying to go back to 1988 and what he was telling me, because I can never forget that conversation.
But 6 months you can back out.
I can back out without it being dishonorable, or you know, on the less than honorable. They will just say, he told me something. He said that you and the army were not a good fit.
Yes.
And you could leave without any kind of repercussions.
Negative
right.
repercussions.
So then I said no. And then I wrote to the school and I said, no, I'll just stay. Then when I told the school, told me, if I do the 4 years and get an honorable discharge, I can come and they will reduce the $72,000 scholarship to probably almost zero because I'll have the GI Bill. And I said I would, but then when I got to North Carolina, school was not in my mind, and then I told them, okay, just forget it. But Drill Sergeant Freaky, he told me how to manage money. Because I was 26 and all the other guys were like 17, 18, 19. And so he knew I could speak to him, and I'd already been to Grenada because they had given us the US Army had given us a medal.
Ah, I see.
And then, because then they gave me permission to wear that medal on my uniform.
Okay. So you have a Grenada campaign medal from the US Army?
Yes. So
did the other Dominicans get it too?
The other Dominicans did. Yeah, they gave us that medal. So they told us we could wear it. They told me I could wear it, and I was the only one with a medal. Yes. On my uniform, and I had been to combat. So they had already, I could talk to them. So whether they were white or black, the drill sergeants, they were kind of my age.
Yes.
So, they didn't really only one treated me like I was like some kid, but the rest of them, they treated me more like their peers.
Yes.
And so, I could shoot. So they always had me shoot.
Well, you're a good shot.
Yeah, they had me teach you shoot and shoot. Amazing. I could shoot. I don't miss.
Did you get a marksman? Did you get a marksman?
No, there's marksman, there's sharpshooter, and expert. I was expert every single time.
Amazing.
Almost 40 out of 40 on every shoot.
Outstanding. So let me ask you this. So how long did you spend in the Army?
8 years and 2 days.
And you get out of the Army and you go straight to Mihari?
No. Remember when I left the Army, I only had an associate. So I went to Nashville and did my bachelor's. And then after I finished in like 2 years, because I did the associates in 9 months, 3 quarters. After I finished, at Tribeca Nazarene University, I went to undergrad there, and it's a Nazarene church school. So one of my friends, he was a captain in the Army and he lived up there. He was in National Guard. So he took me to all these schools, Vanderbilt and all these. And I went to them actually before I made my mind up where I wanted to go. I actually went to those schools during class hours and sat in the classes to see what sizes the classes are, what are the interactions with the teachers, how are they. And I chose Tribeca because it was smaller. It was a white school and it's a religious school. But I looked at where the placement of their graduates, I'm like, I like that school. And but what I liked about it is they don't push the Nazarene religion on you. What they do though, and you have to, it's a requirement, you have to take every single one of those religious philosophical classes, all the way up to the 5,000, right? The 5,000 classes. So
Yes.
as the religious people are taking those classes, you taking them with them. At the end, whether I was majoring in science, biology, and micro, and the others, whether you're in music, it doesn't matter. You have to do ministry. You learn every world religion, what is strong about them, what is weak about them, and blah, blah, blah. If you want to go to the ministry on graduation, you tell them before graduation, and then they have a chapel on campus. And then you go through that track where you have to prepare sermons and preach either during the day or in night. And then you can get ordained. But I didn't go that route.
That's right.
But I like the school.
So you did your bachelor's in biology and chemistry.
Yeah. And
double.
Yeah. And then when a bachelor's in biology and a minor in chemistry.
Yes.
And then I went to Tennessee State University to look up what I would need. I always try to go ahead, step ahead and be proactive with what I want in my life. So I went to the school and I said, what do I need to get a master's degree? I need a master's degree. What do I need? Blah, blah, blah. They said transcripts. And I got all the packet from Tennessee State. And while I was there, I looked up Meharry and I see it was just down the street. So I said, let me go there and ask. Because if I'm already at TSU and I want to get a doctorate, let me see what Meharry would want me to have so I can tailor that at TSU, Tennessee State.
And Meharry is only Meharry University is one of the oldest Black medical schools in America.
Yes, in the country. And the name Meharry, it is unique because the story of Meharry is a direct link to slavery.
Yes.
This guy called Meharry was riding a slave master, was riding his wagon and he got stuck in the mud one night, either rainy night. And the slave family picked him up. They washed his clothes, they fed him, they let him stay there and sent him on his way, unstuck his wagon. And he said, one day, I will do something for your people. And he started a nursing school for them. The oldest Black nursing school, which ended up being Meharry Medical College.
Amazing.
So direct link to that. So when I went to Meharry, I saw this lady, this Black lady there, and I said, what do I need to get a PhD here and how much would it cost? She said, it was June. It was like 12th or something of June. And I knew the deadline to apply for that school year to Meharry was already done. So I just went to look for information and she said, we have a slot for somebody that dropped out in the applications. Where are transcripts? I said, I don't have a master's. I just went to TSU. Here's my TSU paperwork. I'm gonna register for them, but I came here to ask. Say, you don't need a master's. I said, well, how much is that gonna cost? Nothing. What? Not only that,
your GI Bill.
No, I had spent the GI Bill already in undergrad.
Okay.
When you are doing the PhDs in these sciences, all our publications open access to the world, right? And it is funded mostly by the US government.
Ah.
NIH grants for students. And so she told me nothing. And she said, not only does it cost nothing, but we give you a stipend every month. We pay for your health insurance and your books, and we get to send you to a conference every year.
Amazing. Can you hold 1 second? Can you hold 1 second, doctor? 1 second. Yeah. Well, it means we have a few more minutes left because I got a call from my other boss. But this has been a fascinating interview. So you didn't have to pay for your PhD?
No. And so I just said, sign me up. And she said, the lady said, do you have your transcripts with you? I said, no, but can I borrow your phone? And when we talk about teachers and people that pass you on with that relay baton we talked about earlier on, the chair of the Department of Microbiology at Trevecca, this old white lady, elderly white lady, Dr. Anne Fuqua. I picked up the phone and I called her and I said, Dr. Fuqua, I am at Meharry Medical College and they want my transcript because they have one spot for somebody that dropped and I want to apply. She said, oh, yes. Hold on. She called the library. She called the because the library is where the registrar is. She said, can you get an official copy of this transcript for Augustine for me? Put it in one of those, she put it in one of those bags and had a courier drop it to me, Harry, while I'm sitting there.
Amazing.
Not only the transcript, she got the head of the physician's assistant program, which I had applied to, and I changed my mind, Dr. Farrell, and the head of the physics department to both write, while I'm waiting, to both write recommendations for me.
Wow.
And
amazing.
All my transcripts were just A, all the way down.
Amazing.
And she said, you're in. I said, but the acceptance committee, she said, I saw the other resumes, you in.
Amazing. God be the glory.
And I started at the end of August with them. That was June.
And that's
August,
1991.
1991. 1990, 2000. 1999, I graduated from Trevecca. 2000, I started Meharry.
Outstanding. And your focus of study, your thesis was on?
My thesis actually found a potential vaccine, where we call it a vaccine candidate for Chagas disease, which is American trypanosomiasis. The cousin to that is African sleeping sickness, African trypanosomiasis. So the protein that I got on the surface of that parasite, I made antibodies against it, and when we block it, it cannot infect us. And if it, like COVID, if it has already gone inside your cell, it must come back out. When you destroy that cell and come back out, the antibodies will be in the bloodstream and destroyed. Johns Hopkins actually just last year put out something on LinkedIn. And if you go to my LinkedIn page, you will see where I commented on Johns Hopkins post. They posted that Trypanosoma cruzi, Chagas disease, is the forgotten disease.
Wow.
And I put on the link under it, here is my research for that. And they actually did say it. I said, here is the research, and I linked my research to the potential cure.
Outstanding. Doctor, there's another meeting we will have to talk about the science of what you did, but your work carried you into the EPA for how many years?
17.
And how valuable do you see this kind of research as you've done on Chagas disease as part of a development initiative for small island states like Dominica, which has limited natural resources like in gold and oil, but we have strong human resources, or what you call intellectual capital. Tell me what you see we could do with that intellectual capital based on your experience.
Dominica doesn't just have intellectual capital, you know. Dominica has actual, all these plants we see on the side of the road and in the mountains and all in the, when they're sending you to go get this and go get that for this condition, we have not studied them. We have, in my opinion, I believe Dominica has a whole lot of medicines that the world can benefit from if we get the right organic chemists and the like to come and study them. And then we can take them into clinical trials and find out that a lot of those things. I was talking to Dr. Gail Defoe during the pandemic, and she's very interested in that. She's right there in Dominica. I think they call it a herb doctor.
Yes.
And so we have, our experiences here, I think, and I've always looked at it that way. Whenever I did my projects, and the very last one that I proposed, I know I can't talk about it, but in broad sense, to look at air quality, water quality, look at children's health in the Virgin Islands, and on how climate change interacts with all those, right? The beach water levels, the cistern levels. But I designed it because it would be a great test area for results that will be applicable to the non-US islands.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So I designed a study that would be beneficial to the end, that can be copy and pasted, and the recommendations to be the Dominica Academy, so that people can see it. That's nice. They can see it, then they can go ahead.
I just want to let you know that your good friend Vigi, Reginald Vigilant, and
Yes.
another good friend of yours whose name will remain unspoken at this time, have revived the Academy's website. It's here.
Okay.
And I've been delegated to offer you the chairmanship of the Academy so that we can do exactly what you talked about. If you'll see at the bottom here, the Academy, is sponsored by Omni Systems. You see right here, that's VG's company.
Yeah, I know. I have VG.
So
yes,
I know I put you on the spot. It's like I brought you before the altar with a new wife, and I'm asking you. I do. Is your answer I do?
All right.
This is yours to make happen, because I would be frank with you, there are few Dominicans with your skill sets in service to country, service to humanity, service to the military, service to hardcore science. And we have a lot of people who I believe will respect what you say based on your achievements. So this is for you to ponder, but the chairmanship is yours. And then you can gather the folks together in a convention we can have at the University of Maryland. The University of Maryland's President Heidi Anderson will be happy to host us for a weekend where we could do some great things in person and by Zoom. So I will send this to you because I believe you're correct.
All right.
I believe you're correct. I believe we have in Dominica so many plants that have not been studied, so we don't know what they possess. What say you?
I totally agree. We do. We have a wealth in Dominica of knowledge. And look, even the older people, when I found myself while I was home doing what I always did when I was there, hang out with the old folks and listening to them. And I didn't even have enough. I made 3 trips to Delices and spent 3 days at a time, whatever. And I didn't have enough time. Because what these people were teaching me, now I use the word teaching, these old folks were teaching me. I'm like, man, if these young kids just sit and listen to them, they give you all kinds of knowledge about, because they're giving you the knowledge from not a book, but the book of their life.
That's right.
Their
That's right.
experiences, good and bad.
Yes, indeed.
And that is priceless to me. So
yes.
but I do think, and I brought it up in Dominica, and I talked to Cecil Shillingford, and I mean Cecil, Joseph, and some of the others, that look, we do, those of us who come here and achieve things, we want to give it back. And I say the word give. I want to give it back. And
Yes.
when I was down there, I was offered a job as the president of the state college.
Yes.
And, you know, I've been thinking about it. And a lot of people try to discourage me, right? But here's the thing. One person, and I'm not going to call names, but one person actually told me when I told him about it, go and look at the college. Go up there. And I did. I drove up there. And I saw what I think they wanted me to see. But they didn't see what I saw.
You saw a diamond in the rough.
I saw broken rafters. I saw the remnants of the ravages of the hurricane.
Yes.
But what I saw were the students walking and standing under those bloody rafters as though it didn't exist. And they looked like college students.
Yes.
These kids were not worried about the rafters.
Yes.
So while the person who told, and it was a very respected person who told me to go look. And they didn't tell me one way or the other how to make up my mind.
That's right.
They told me to go look at the physical place.
And judge for yourself.
Yes, but what I saw were the students and the hunger and the camaraderie when you come in from one class to the next.
Can I ask you a question, Doctor? Would you be willing to serve as the chairman of an advisory board for the college as a preliminary to maybe that position? At that time, you can make a decision of one way or the other. It's up to you. It's always going to be your choice. But at least you can begin the process of engagement, because at the end of the day, you know, whatever the government, we have made all statements on the government, but we are working for Dominica all the time. We have never let that stop us. In medical care, in this, that, and the other, with the cadet program, because at the end of the day, you have to forget the government. You have to think
It's the country.
The country. You have to think about your country.
The greater good.
I'm going to encourage you. In fact, I'm asking you right now, if the opportunity came to serve as the chairman of an advisory board, because frankly, I could not think of a better person. And then you, with your background, could gather others similarly educated to help provide resources, guidance, help them build. And while in that process, you could make up your mind for the next step. What say you?
Okay. So before I answer that, are you gonna edit this before we you put out?
Well, I can pause if you want me to. I can pause the recording.
Okay, pause right there.
Okay, hold on. 3. Dr. Swinburne Augustine, PhD, Meharry College, U.S. Army veteran, Dominica Police Force, SSU, patriot, humanitarian, someone who gave much service during the COVID-19, not only to the United States, but to the island of his birth and to the other Caribbean islands. I want to take this moment, sir, to render a smart salute and to thank you for your service and to ask for you to tell us what you see for emerging threats, maybe in a very summary form, in way of being prepared for such, emerging threats in ways, maybe the next variant of COVID? And what do you see for our beloved homeland of Dominica and the Caribbean diaspora in general, in the way of how we marry our intellectual resources overseas to development at home?
So let's start with, that's a lot.
I understand, but I know you can handle it.
Yes. The research, what I learned in doing research, and if people understand research, and that is basically the reason I couldn't go home since 2006, right? Because when you're doing research, you are in uncharted territory. You are working in the unknown. And you're working by scientific principles to solve those. So here I am with a PhD, and I'm telling the US government, trust me, give me all these, pay me this money, give me this stuff, give me this equipment, and give me this space. And every year, I will give you something that never existed. Because every one of your publications has to be original. It had nothing about it has to have existed before. So the following, just like when I told you about how I was always afraid when I jumped, but I jumped anyways because I trusted my training. The same with science. And I'm gonna tell you this. There's a quote by a philosopher, I think it's Bertrand Russell. He said, the ignorant are so cocksure, but the intelligent are so full of doubt. Every time I'm doing these experiments, especially with that pipette you saw me with in that picture you showed earlier, when you're dealing with microliters, I'm saying 5 microliters, that is a little drop on a pinhead. And I have to trust that I actually did pull up that thing and that the results that I'm going to get are going to show that I actually had it. And sometimes, did I put this? Because there's such small amounts and so many different moving parts that you question yourself constantly. And even after you get the results and you have all these other experts that you're working with, they are experts in their field, not yours. And all of you are protective about your fields, but you understand that it takes all of it to make it work. And I think that kind of knowledge is what propelled me to the work that I've done, the contributions to COVID, helping to develop the saliva test that they use, the antibody test that they use for COVID, and to educate the public. Because of that work, and because of my questioning, the American Association of Immunology, actually in 2022, the misinformation that we saw during COVID, and we have not even yet quantified the deaths directly related to misinformation, but I know it's a lot. Because of that misinformation, I kept in all meetings, I'm on the membership committee, I would bring up the fact that we did a very lousy job educating the public before COVID. Not when COVID happened. People forgot about vaccines. They forgot about those things, and we doing all this work, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of a pandemic, we're gonna give them all this complicated stuff and expect them to believe us and trust us. I said, no, we failed. And so the American Association of Immunology, they took it seriously, and they actually started a new committee called the Public Communications Committee. And they asked me to be on that committee because of my journalism experience and because we have to communicate with the public.
Yeah, I mean, for instance,
Now,
I mean, we know that an African in Massachusetts with, Dr. Jenner got his idea of vaccines from an African, an enslaved African. And so, we sometimes
Johnson and Johnson.
That's correct. So I'm happy to hear that, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And
Yes.
I lost at least one friend, personal friend dear to me, was in the May 29th riot, who didn't take the vaccine because he took bush tea and all kinds of things.
The same person you talked about that saved Dominica, that should get an award, I begged him. I gave him all my knowledge. And the last time I spoke to him, he was on the hospital bed and barely could breathe because he didn't believe in the vaccines.
So
I was actually on the President Biden's vaccine campaign in Arizona. When I got to Arizona that Sunday afternoon, I spoke with him and told him, I don't know if it's too late, but the vaccine is the only thing I can tell you about. And I heard the alarms going off, and I said, did you pull your mask off to talk to me? He said, yes. I said, that's why the alarms in the ICU beeping, put it back on because the nurses are gonna run. Sure enough, they came. By Wednesday, he was dead. That was Sunday. By Wednesday, Norma calls me and I'm crying in Arizona because a person I gave all my knowledge, that's my best friend, one of my best friends, and so now the second part of that question was what we can do for our country. I recognized one thing when I went home. I knew it, but I actually put it into practice when I went home. A lot of us leave Dominica under all kinds of conditions to come to go to different countries because we want better for our families, we want better for ourselves, we want to study. And then we work, we go to school, we succeed, we do our things, we do great things. But a lot of us forget that the Dominica we talk about exists because a lot of them didn't leave.
Yes.
A lot of them stayed. They had opportunities too, but they stayed so that we can have a country to come back to. And yes. So every one of them I met back home, while they were telling me about the things that I was doing and how they were proud, and I was telling them, I'm proud that you all stayed and kept a country for me to come back to.
Yes.
Thank you for staying and taking the guai that they did while we gone.
Yeah.
They kept it for us. And so...
So we have a duty to help them.
Yes. Yes. And this is that is the foundation for everything else I will talk to you about Dominica. This is where it's at. It's the ones who stayed behind so that we, just like my grandparents stayed behind in Delices, so that my parents could go in town and go to Canada to study and do what they do.
Yes.
They stayed in Dominica to make sure we have a home to come back to. And so we don't look down on them. Instead, we thank them for holding the fort for us.
Absolutely.
And that we should give them what we came to learn. Because they gave us the opportunity to do that.
I totally agree.
And so that I believe, if all our listeners, educated or not, what? And education is not really a piece of paper. So I shouldn't even say education or not, because I don't know anybody that was smarter than my grandfather. And he didn't have nobody's piece of paper from school.
That's right.
So if we take that and look at it in that light, that these people stayed home to sacrifice in that hot sun on $4.25 an hour if they had a job, or
Yes.
by doing agriculture, they kept the country for us.
Yes, sir.
And we should be grateful, and we should be able to give them back what we came. Because I know I didn't mean to stay here that long. But when you get in this system, you must. It is designed to keep you there.
You must. And so I think what you've said is the basis for that collaboration we desire, because it is what you've said is a manifestation of your grace and your sense of duty to the country. And we must always put the country first. I frankly have no interest in partisan politics. I mean, our roots came out of the Labour Party. Miss Charles, of course, because I was on the political left, I obviously took my scholarship. But here is where Eugenia Charles had Samora as a 10-year-old baby in her hands. And after 13 years of working on health projects, library projects, I never once reproached her. And when Ruzi asked me to be ambassador, you know who I went to ask for advice?
Miss Charles.
I know what she said to me. She said, Christian, leave that for somebody who has time to do. Stay in your law practice and help Dominica as you've always helped in the past. And, you know, she was a very, Miss Charles didn't waste time. She didn't have time for fine words. She was a straightforward person. And I respected that and loved that about that woman. And the more I have gotten, the older I've become, the more respect has developed in me for what she did. And, you know, when she told me in the interview, she told the police, if they kidnap her, don't pay ransom, you know. She said to me, if they kidnap her, don't pay, if Pocoso or whatever, kidnap her, don't pay ransom, let them do what they want to do. So she was a very brave person.
She had a very good memory too. Very good memory.
Yes.
Because I was a young SMA kid going to her law offices by we church there, right? In a little hole. Yes. And we would sit there. Ozzy Lewis, myself, Ronald Charles from Loubier, you know that. So we sitting there and I'm just kids, just listening. Yes. But then this lawyer woman, and we know she rich, but she just so cool with us.
She was Miss Charles had absolutely no interest in the material trappings of wealth. I can tell you that as a fact, that she would stay at the home of the same McDonald Benjamin I told you about, his wife. She's German, just so she wouldn't charge the government per diem for hotel. She was very
she was very frugal.
She was not very frugal. That's the word, very frugal.
She was very Miss Charles was very frugal.
And that is what, to me, for someone who has money and who could show off and who could this and that.
That I definitely learned from her.
So it is something to me to model. Anybody of decency can model themselves after Eugenia Charles in way of her integrity, that she was not haughty about who are you, or do you know who I am, you know?
Nope.
And it's been a blessing, you know, to have had this interview with you. We honor you, and I think you honor our country. And I just want to encourage other Dominicans who will listen to this tape to give service and to be of the same view that you shared a moment ago, that we have to honor those who stayed because they kept the country going. And so now we, where we can, have to do all that we can. And not a day passes without Dominica being on my mind. You know, Dominica is always on my mind. Whatever I see, I want to see what I can do to bring, if it's beneficial, in a library, a museum, a laboratory, you know. So I'm hoping we can work together with the academy and with the state college, with our students, to encourage them to be like you, successful, disciplined, productive, industrious, be risk takers for good, not for bad. Risk takers, not in gangs and drugs and so on, but risk takers in way of science, technology, industry, agriculture, and in organization our community for success.
And
Doctor,
we
I want
have
to
a
wish you.
lot, sorry,
No, please.
we have a lot of, I mean, at that level, people, when you ask somebody to talk and you give them, they will talk. They will give you all their knowledge. Because people say when you die, you can't take anything with you. That's a lie. That's a lie, because all of that knowledge that I have, I will take it with me unless I give
You
it.
share it. You share it. That's right. And
And
so
I have noticed that the more that I share it,
the more it expands.
it doesn't decrease.
It expands.
It expands. So
Yes. As a matter of fact, I would suggest to you, with regard to the partnership with the State College, that you initiate a online university program where people like yourself and others, wherever they may be located, can use Zoom protocol like we're using right now to lecture our students at the most advanced level, so that we can have what you call a seamless university, meaning that you have the State College in Dominica, but really it's global. That is, all the partnerships we have overseas and all the Dominicans we have overseas can be able to help Dominica.
well, with that, and then with that, I will send you, I think, I don't know if I send it to you, but I'm going to send it to you. It was something I'll send it to you. But
it's a lecture, it's a lecture that you did.
15 minutes after I put on LinkedIn that I retired. Less than 15 minutes, the dean of Edwards Waters University in Jacksonville, Florida, who went to Meharry, he went to Fisk right next to Meharry. I mean, he asked me to be a professor of microbiology and public health online.
Yes.
And the same thing I told the Dominica folks. I said, let me think about it. I just retired. I just need to know what.
But you know what you've just said there? What you've just said there is important, because of your fame, let's call it that for what it is, you might be able to do that and link that with
the college.
That's right.
Because I bet you, he's a black guy, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like Mac Shepard. I'll send you that. I took a screenshot. I sent to you.
We're still recording, and I don't want to keep it going, but
Okay.
You get the point I'm making. You see, this discussion has been very fruitful, because if you were to take up any one of those, including the one with Max Shepard, there's no difficulty in linking it to the college. In my view,
Exactly.
all we'd have to do is like an MOU with like the University of Maryland,
exactly.
And we can have joint programs. So you can exponentially increase the offerings of the Dominica State College without too much investment of capital.
And
simply
we can lobby the embassy, the U.S. Embassy in Barbados, and I can bring the students to the EPA here to get training.
Yeah, there we go. On that note, any final words at Christmas?
Yes,
because you've just given us a huge Christmas present with what you just said. If you can just wrap it up.
I just want to encourage all the listeners to hold strong, because you know what, especially Dominicans, they will understand that, because Dominica is the nature island is full of hills and valleys. We sing about them in the national anthem, but we leave the national anthem in our lives, because our lives are full of hills and valleys. And we always celebrate when we up on the top of the mountain, and then we depressed and want to do terrible things to ourselves and others when we down. But it is part of the journey. People always see the doctorate, they see the degree, but they don't see the journey. And that journey, along that journey, yes, it is tough, but like that relay race, there is always somebody there waiting to take you to the next level, but you will never know them. They will never know you until you make that step forward. And with that, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas. and a happy new year. And for the new year, go into the new year thinking this, something that Henry Ford said when his family and friends were discouraging him from building a car. He said, if he had listened to them, he would have made either a better horse or better carriage. He can't make a horse. So he said, if you think, and I'm paraphrasing, if you think you can, you are correct. If you think you cannot, you are also right.
Ah, interesting.
Keyword, they think. I think, therefore I am. Well,
Yeah.
Descartes.
Descartes. I think, therefore I am. Descartes.
So I would encourage the young people to think. Think beyond where you are today. If I was thinking Delices when I was there, I would not be where I am today because I was thinking beyond Delices. I saw a world beyond there. And I didn't complain and I didn't expect people to hand me anything. I went to get it. Just like when we were planting our stuff in the mountain, we had to plant it. If you didn't plant it, you didn't eat it.
You couldn't harvest it.
Right. You can't harvest it. So I learned to go after what I want. Not, if somebody, there is, and like you said earlier, there are always people that will help you.
Oh, yes.
But they will help you if they see you trying.
They have to see that spark in you, that energy in you, and they themselves will be inspired by it, and they will help you out.
Exactly.
You know?
And
so
it will be there. It's a natural, it's just like it's like a cycle.
Iron sharpens
iron.
That's right. So the people in your company, you know, my wife says energy flows where the focus goes. So if your focus is positive, you will bring positive people into your space. If your focus is negative, you will bring negative people into your space. So, Doctor, let's keep it positive. This has been a positive experience. I feel it's been an enormous blessing that you brought to us as a people. We're proud of you, sir. And again, we shall, in the new year, by God's grace, do the best we can for our community in Dominica, the wider Caribbean, and in the United States. God bless you.
And Merry Christmas to you, Joan, the kids, and Hua, to Sam, and to all the listeners. I hope you get inspired and learn something, because this is what it's meant to do, to teach something, to learn. And every time we listen, we should learn.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Tell Joan Merry Christmas, and the kids